Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of Fast and Furious racing action in the UK Sim Racing Community's GT3 League Season 15, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and powered, or sponsored I should say, by the Virtual Racing School, that's VRS. From round number 1 at Daytona, we opened up last time out with an absolute strategic sensational thriller, where our drivers looked absolutely brazen in their battles into the opening few corners on lap number 1, but as they made their way onto the banking on the open lap, things settled down rather quickly, and with that it all became about strategy. But here today in round number 2, we've exchanged the United States of America for the United Kingdom, and we're making our way all the way from Daytona International Speedway to the rather old but still ever loved Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Located in the UK county of Kent, it is the circuit that sits in the Garden of England, and whilst it's the smallest circuit on our calendar, spanning the best part of 2.3 miles, it is a circuit where GT3 racing comes to its tarmac each and every year in the world of real life racing with the GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Cup. Here in the simulator as well, it's every so often seen for GT3 class racing, and we're going to see it here today because it's narrow, it's short, and that means one thing in particular: track position is absolutely key, and all of the drivers are going to be absolutely eager to put in the best possible qualifying lap they can in order to lead the way all the way to the checker flag. But that's not to say battles are not possible here, but you've got to lure your rival into a mistake, or alternatively you've got to be very bold under braking, and you've got to be willing to dive into those corners. Indeed, hopefully our rivals will know exactly where the limits are, because if not, we could see a few cars going to the grass, and from the grass to the barriers, and either into the trees. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this broadcast live from circuit side, albeit it's a post-round broadcast, more on that in a second. You're tuning in right now via one of two of the official UK Sim Racing media channels. You could be tuning in via YouTube, and that's at youtube.com, and search for UK Sim Racing and UKSR. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, of which we do say hello there to Alex Brown, Anstis Races, that's Nathan Anstis I believe, and Tom at Western. Good evening to you guys, and I hope you're all doing well and had a cracking start to your Monday, and if not, let's turn that frown upside down into a smile with some brilliant racing action. But of course, we do also have the broadcast available on Twitch at twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. In the commentary booth, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds in this post-round broadcast. Now, what do we mean by post-round broadcast? For the uninitiated, the racing itself is not live. It occurred as of yesterday evening on Sunday the 29th of July, goodness me, we're jumping a month ahead there, 29th of June 2025, where we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Monday evening on the 30th of June. We do not know who takes pole position or how the qualifying order we set for the grid. We do not know how the race plays out, any of the major events, all in between, or who arrives at the checker flag first across our 4 driver classes. So therefore, it's completely raw and new to us here in the commentary booth, and it'll be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls at home. And as always, we do stress, if you are tuning in right now and you do know the outcome, or indeed some of the events that take place in round number 2 of the championship, do not reveal them in the chat, and that way avoids any potential spoilers for us here in the commentary booth, but more importantly for the guys and girls tuning in who do not know what happens as we make our way onto this journey. And what a journey it has been so far. Already 1 round complete, and so much to dissect from that opening round, but here we are then. Here's our calendar. So we strike our way through Daytona International Speedway, and at Daytona, well, the big story at the front of the field was that Daniel Stasuk had set the initial pace, following a very well-managed race in his accurate NSX Evo 22, and he was kept honest in the first stint by the Pace Worx eSports pair of James Powlesland and Pavel Dolezal. However, after the pit stops, it was the Acura running away, and Stasuk was absolutely ripping his tearing away around the American asphalt. But can he repeat that today? In the Pro class, Joe Newman was the man who left everybody speechless in the fact that his Ford Mustang absolutely ran rampant there, but it's going to be a very different style of circuit today. And also keep in mind, the polesitter Ruben Berings, fresh from getting married and on his honeymoon, making his way onto the simulator, where it all went wrong on the open lap after taking a sensational pole lap and leaving the door open to Joe Newman. In the AM class, well, avoiding all the drama, it was Brex Berings who was able to secure a win on his debut in the UK Sim Racing GT3 League. And in the rookie class, there were so many drivers showing great pace, but none of them could stand the test of time that Pavel could do, as he ran away with victory ahead of Alistair Murray and BJ Alvarez. But also keep your eyes out for Alex Brown, who was so close to achieving his maiden podium, but it all went wrong in the closing stages, and the commentator's curse seemed to bite him right at the close. But here we are then at Brands Hatch Circuit for the 29th of June, and after today, we've got one more round before we head into our mid-season break, and that'll be round number 3 at the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. And then after our break week, we have got 7 rounds to see it all the way through to conclusion, with round number 4 being at the Virginia International Speedway, and we head all the way around the globe from Italy to France to Brazil to America to the United Kingdom and then to Germany for the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecker, or the Gosterpreis Strecker, in round 10 of 10, and that's where we'll bring the curtain down. And keep in mind, of course, that the second half of the season, from round 6 through to 10, we'll also see the introductory UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup, and more on that when we do get closer to the time. But Speaking of getting closer to the scene, let's take a little bit about the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And here it is. Circuit layout on screen at least, and thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but all the track maps that are captured within it. This Grand Prix circuit spanning 2.3 miles, as we mentioned only moments ago. Located near the village of West Kingstown in the English county of Kent in the United Kingdom. 9 fabled corners there, and this is the full extension of the circuit, which is only available, if you want a little bit of pub quiz trivia, it's only available for 10 to 11 times for racing each and every year, due to the fact the circuit does back onto the houses of a number of residents of the West Kingstown village, albeit the circuit existed before the village, but the village has gradually expanded to back itself onto the back loop of the circuit, so particularly turns 6 through to 9, and therefore due to noise regulation, it is the situation whereby the Grand Prix loop can only be used for up to 11 events a year at the discretion of the council and the circuit organisers. But thankfully, it does seem as though West Kingstown has enabled us to go racing here today, and these 9 corners are going to be absolutely brilliant, but narrowness is the key here. There's very little room to go too wide. However, you can go too wide, you've got to be ready to be absolutely on the nail when it comes to knowing where to brake and how much space to give your rival and where you can overtake. But coming into tonight, let's give you a quick recap of the rules. Remember, this is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 60% for all races. That will mandate a pit stop. More on that shortly. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format shall be used, with drivers having 4 flying laps available to them, plus their out lap. And that was a big story as well. Qualifying last time out. Many of you remember, new tyre model for the GT3s, and we got to see many drivers really putting their best laps right at the end of the qualifying session, and that carried through into the race, where a lot of drivers struggled on the cold tyres and needing to get acclimatised to the fact you can't go full pace until you've done about 2, 3 or even 4 laps on the tyres, depending on your car and the setup you're using. And that could be another major theme here today. Those who adapt to the new tyre model best may put themselves on pole and maybe leading the way. Speaking of leading the way into the race then, well, the race shall commence via a double spiral rolling start, as is a tradition, and we can see a 1-man-3 pit stop on the cards. That's for fuel. Changing tyres is entirely optional, although tyre degradation on the left side tyres will be quite high here, and therefore we can expect some of the drivers to consider doing a tyre change. Each driver has 1 fast repair available should they need it due to damage, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. And also, we'd just like to say a big thank you to the Virtual Racing School, who's once again back with them for this season as our title sponsor. Each round we will be giving away VRS competitive subscriptions to our competitors, and each round will be given away via separate raffle draws: a 3-month subscription, a 2-month subscription, and a 1-month subscription. And we'll do all those draws after the racing concludes, and any driver who takes to the grid for a given round is eligible to enter the raffle draw for each prize, so long as they have not won the prize in a previous round. So for example, Jack Barker was the winner of the 2-month subscription last time out at Daytona, so he'll still win the raffle draw for the 3-month for the 1 month, but he's not eligible for the 2-month subscription, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of today's show. But enough about rules, regulation, giveaways and everything in between. You're all here for the racing, and so are we, so let's make our way back to circuit side then. And as we do, well, right now the man who seems to be the fastest of everybody is none other than Alberto Grivilli, as he roars his way around there in the McLaren 720S Evo GT3, and looking very fast out there in this final practice warm-up session. It must be said, the effect simulation driver in the number 90, albeit he is in the company of another McLaren, and that's the McLaren of James Armstrong, who we see further on down the order here, at least in the circuit order, and the term separated by only half a tenth, if that. And the effect simulations guys, I think, trying to run in the toe of each other and get a little bit of practice and experience of how exactly it feels to run that close on the back of each other. However, we will see how it all works out between them a little bit later on, although I should say that James Armstrong, not for effect simulations of course, running in the Eau Rouge machine, but tucked into the back there of one of the effect simulations McLarens, and we'll try and discern who that was there. Couldn't quite catch the number. I think that was Simon Bamber there, but well, James Armstrong, he's not shy of battling with the effect simulations guys over the years, the UK Sim Racing GT3 League, and also in other GT3 racing series and indeed other series on the simulator. But as they roar the way on through, we also do say hello there, Twin Caliber UK, and I hope you're doing well, Twin Caliber, and the pleasure is all mine. It's great to have you with us. We also do say hello there to Sir Botterchob, who says, let's try not to get cross maps this week, in reference to the fact that Daytona, he had the ultimate jump scare, which was coming out of turn 6 after a spin from turn number 5. We managed to land the 360-degree spin quite nicely. He came out the turn 6 hairpin at the infield, only to suddenly find a car come careening across the grass. He would never have seen it coming. We didn't see it coming. The car came from stage left and made its way through an exited stage right, and suddenly, all for Sir Bottlejob or Jack Barker, his race was in absolute tatters before he could really get it underway. We also say hello there to K&H Motorsport, and also to Newman Pass or Joe at Newman. But coming to the pro class then, well, speaking of Joe Newman, the man who set the time screens alight last time out, well, he's currently the provisional pole sitter in this practice session, at least the fastest time. But Ruben Berings back once again in the Audi R8 Evo 2. And as he makes his way into the final corner here via clearways, he'll be hoping that it's all going to go the way of the Audi today. And the Ford Mustang's not going to have it its way, but it's anybody's guess because, of course, we do have what is a whole host and variety of cars around here. And the Brands Hatch circuit, a much more corner-focused circuit. Indeed, our drivers will not be getting to in excess of 150 miles an hour around here. The fastest point of the circuit will be the run from turn number 4 at Surtees all the way into Hawthorns at turn number 5 via the Pilgrim's Drop. And that will see them reach top gear for a brief moment, only then to surrender top gear and spend the majority of lap in 3rd and 4th gears, minus the Druids hairpin, and also going down through Damien Hill Bend there, and Graham Hill Bend actually, and they will be running in 2nd and 3rd for a good portion of the lap. But with it being the Newman Berings battle there, at least it would seem based on the provisional times, in the AM class, the majority of our AM drivers in the pit lane, they're not out there trying to get time in, but it's DDK Racing Team's Tom Weston who's currently looking the fastest in the Mercedes AMG Evo. And well, I can tell you from personal experience, ladies and gentlemen, the last time I saw a Mercedes AMG Evo on pole was in person at Brands Hatch, and it was the 2023 GT World Challenge Sprint Cup races at Brands Hatch, and that was the day because we got to see the lap record broken by the Akodis ASP Mercedes AMG Evo being driven by Rafael Marchiello, and he absolutely destroyed the lap record. And the running joke was it was as if he was playing on the simulator and had his rolls on easy mode, because he in the end gapped the field by 15 seconds over a 1 hour race with the switch over to his co-driver over the course of the distance. And could Tom Weston be trying to beat a little bit of a Rafael Marchiello today? Well, we will wait and see. With Peter Duke, his teammate, 1.5 seconds down in the Acura NSX, and we're hoping plenty more comes today for Peter Duke, because last time out it was misery at Daytona, and he's not had much luck in recent history in his GT3 League racing. He's always seems to have been in the worst possible place at the worst possible time, and purely of circumstance, he's ended up in a bit of disaster. In the rookie class, meanwhile, it's Pavel, the championship leader, who's looking the fastest out there at the moment by 3/10 over Richard Jones. But the Acura driver, slow and steady racing, well, he's going to have a bone to pick for the simple reason the fact that he was the man who put it on pole, if my memory serves me correctly, at Daytona, but very quickly found himself ejected out of the lead of the race, and in the end having to settle for very little in terms of points. Indeed, that could be said of a number of rookie drivers where it all simply fell apart before it could get moving forward. But we do have plenty of fresh faces here as well, and James Abraham here in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, well, that's a rallycross line, and then more so, he's not going to be allowed to do that under qualifying. That would be an invalidated lap going that far out at Graham Hill Bend. However, it's very easy to run wide there in the fact that you come downhill and essentially carry all that momentum as you break your way down into turn number 3, and the car essentially steps forward from behind you. But as all the drivers roar the wine around, we say hello there to Leeds Worship Shed and also to CanH Motorsport. Asking the question there, are there still sign-up spots at UK Sim Racing? Well, to give you a quick answer, we currently do have a full 60-car grid, albeit we're not going to see all 60 drivers here today. We do have a grand total, I believe, of 50 drivers or so, but we'll come back to it shortly, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time to head into qualifying. We will be right back. And qualifying is go, go, go. 10 minutes, 5 laps, and who is going to put it on pole in their respective classes? It's time to find out, ladies and gentlemen. And carrying on our conversational theme for only moments ago, as we do see Jack Barker immediately charge his way out the pit lane there, and the sparks flying from underneath the Made for Racing Acura. Well, we do have a full set of sign-ups at the moment, 60 sign-ups. However, you can put yourself on the reserve list, and if we do have drivers drop out at any point in the season, the reserves will gradually be called up. We have got a few reserves who I believe are going to be called up potentially in the coming rounds, from what I understand. But however, we've got no reserves on this running order at the moment. I think there are about 5 or 6 reserves in place currently, and I think a policy has been taken: if a driver does miss multiple rounds, I think it is 3 or more rounds on the start of the season, then they will be asked whether they are planning to compete in the league. So you have 2 drop scores, of course, in the season, so we have to give the benefit of the doubt if a driver misses the opening 2 rounds, but then checks are made from round number 3 onwards. But as Ruben Berings has set an absolutely crazy time there of a 38 seconds. I think that's a glitch there. We'll try and find out what's exactly gone wrong. I suspect he may have decided to make his way back into the pit lane on the exit of Surtees, because you can cut your way back into the pit lane on the exit of turn number 4, and it's normally used as the escape road on cooldown laps after racing, or indeed if there's been an incident on circuit, drivers, if there's a red flag situation, they are escorted up through the pit lane exit up of Surtees. You can see the escape road there off to Berings' right as he makes his way through the corner, and essentially it's the follow-on from the Indy loop, but they cut it a little bit early. But as Berings makes his way around here, we're definitely not going to be seeing lap times of sub 1 minute here. We are expecting lap times in the region of the 1 minute 20s or so. But as we say hello there to Stuart Pearson, what can we expect in qualifying then will be the big questions. I think we are going to get a few glitch lap times here where we have got drivers tying to the pit lane, and where it is causing slight hitches with regards to our time tail. So therefore qualifying might be a bit of a mismatch here, and we will try to keep you up to date as to exactly how everyone's going to qualify. Well, what can we expect in terms of car form? This circuit favours handling machines. That's not to say front-engine rear-wheel drive cars cannot be made to handle well here around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Indeed, machines like the Mercedes AMG, we've got to see some brilliant performances from Tom Weston in the AM class earlier on in practice. They can be made to work, but naturally cars like the McLaren 720S and also the Porsche 992, they are the cars that we are expecting to be the fastest around here by default, just because they naturally are inclined to better rotation. However, the flip side of the coin is in the fact that these cars, with all their rotation, well, they are cars where you've got to drive them on the absolute limit. And particularly on the back end of the lap, once we do go onto the Grand Prix loop, as it's known, that's where we'll get to see oversteer really comes a big factor. And also the fact that once you do dip a tyre or two onto the grass, you get ejected out onto the grass, and the infamous sheen curve out of Dingle-Dale, that is where we can expect many a driver, if they carry too much speed, they will very quickly be making their way in haste towards the barriers, if not making their way towards a tree and rustling all the crows that will be nesting up there. But as we do have here, John Jones making his way on around right now. Well, lap times are gradually coming on in, and well, so far in the elite class, it is Casper Tunstead who is making his way on around and making his way at good pace as well, and he's currently the fastest man out there. You will need to exclude the lap times from Simon Bamber, also Ruben Berings, and I believe none other than Simon Oldfield, because they have had slight glitches, and Darren Sharple's also experienced that. But we will try and configure these lap times as best as we can. But as we do say hello there to Sean Cranny-Swash, who's looking forward to seeing what happens in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, Sean. And we do have a Leeds Worship Shed there shouting out to Milton. And we're speaking of Milton, here he is in the Corvette Z06 GT3R. And this is Milton Tomlinson Dennis, who had a reasonable outing in his debut last time out at Daytona. And he's going to be hoping for plenty more today then. The 192, a very lovely car, that Corvette. Indeed, it does steal hearts, albeit a very silent car compared to its GT predecessor, which was absolutely roaring, scoring loud. But still, the one thing that does stay the same is the 6.2 litre V8 in the back of that machine. And right now, Corvette's ultimate racing car being piloted by the very capable Tomlinson Dennis, as he makes his way on to what will be for him his fourth and final flying lap. And speaking of which, let's get on board here as he takes us around for an attack lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. So bring the car over to the left-hand side here and into Paddock Hill Bend, braking edge of the 100-metre board, fighting with the brakes down to fourth gear as he then carries all the speed on down, all the momentum, and now heading it up towards Druids. Onto the brakes there at the 50 board, all the way down the gearbox he'll go to second gear, taking it nice and gentle not to spin up the rear tyres, and now full out down towards Graham Hill Bend at turn number 3, braking there at an angle as he opens up the corner, turns it through, and now back on the throttle immediately. 2 times win the white lines, that's legal. Now heading in towards Surtees there, braking at the 50-metre board. Wait for it, where's the apex? There it is, a very late apex, a nasty corner Surtees for the uninitiated, but not for Tomlinson Dennis as he powers his way along now and up towards Hawthorne he goes. Well, onto the Grand Prix loop at this point. Flat out then, heading upwards to the best part of 145 miles an hour. Onto the brakes there as he heads into Hawthorne's, down to 5th gear, and down to 4th as well. Snap down shift there, now heading in towards the right-hander, and as he comes through Westfield Bend, hits all about counter speed, drops down to 4th, full throttle now into Dingle-Dale, down the rise, and he'll feel the car compress. Up here he goes, using all the space then to sheen curve, drops to 4th gear, back on the throttle immediately now, heading in towards Stirling's Bend, braking the 50-metre board through the left-hander, down to 3rd gear, and now full throttle all the way down Clearways here into Clark Curve, brings the car over to the left-hand side. He'll put 2 wheels on to the grass and runoff area there to open up the corner if he dares. And out to the final corner he goes. And Tomlinson Dennis brings you an absolutely wonderful 4-attack lap there. The Grand Prix layout of the Brands Hatch circuit. And, well, what a run there. And in the end, he comes across that line. All the lap times are looking quite incorrect at the moment, albeit I can promise you that is a glitch there. Tomlinson Dennis not spending 2.5 minutes, but by looks of things, his best lap in this session. He didn't quite manage to match it. It is going to be a 121.6 from him. And at the moment, at least, that's going to put him somewhere in the region of 10th place in the qualifying order. But all the drivers coming towards the end of their qualifying times at this moment. And, well, currently, it would seem, if we do look at the overall standings and we try to rule out those who've got glitched lap times here, it's James Armstrong who appears to be the fastest here. And I suspect will be one of the big contenders for pole position. He's currently in 9th place overall, but we believe that is the elite pole lap there that we're looking at. And that's a 121.16, only a tenth faster than Alberto Gravilli, and, well, the 2 McLarens will be contesting that front row of the grid. As Armstrong here bobbing and weaving from side to side, and, well, he's getting himself set and ready for one final attack lap of the circuit here. He wants to go all in, does the elite driver. And for the uninitiated, how can you tell who's elite, pro, and rookie? Well, if they've got a black stripe against their name in the time tower, they're elite, and you'll see it on the door cards as well. If they've got a blue stripe, they're pro. If they've got a green stripe, they're am. And if they've got a red stripe, they are a rookie. But right now, Armstrong attacking here as he heads his way in towards Paddock Hill Bend, while the hardest corners in the United Kingdom, for the simple reason you carry so much speed, and it's a huge drop. It's a blind drop as well. And, well, once you complete Paddock Hill Bend, the rest of the lap will feel quite trivial by comparison. The checker flag is coming out for a majority of our drivers right now, in the fact that most of them will have completed their 4 flying laps. We are just waiting for the last couple of laps to come on in. As we can see there, Armstrong in the end will shake it from side to side, and I think he might not be too happy with the lap there, because he did fall out of position for a brief moment. And in fact, I think for James Armstrong, that is going to be it, unless I'm mistaken, because he's going from side to side. He's not happy unless our timing tower, and indeed the data we've got here, is incorrect. He's got one more lap available to him. I don't think we've seen anything more from Armstrong, and I believe it is going to be Alberto Gravilli who has stolen it back, and the Pace Worx eSports machine of James Powlesland will be lined up in 2nd place ahead of Austin William Campbell and James Armstrong, and that will be your front 2 rows of the grid, elite and overall. But what about the rest of the classes meanwhile? Well, I think we're going to need to wait until we do get to the grid before we know exactly where everyone fits together. But at the moment, at least, it is looking as though it's Ruben Berings who is your pole sitter on what is a rather good 1 minute 21.98. And in fact, we do have only one driver in the 1 minute 20s. That's Gravilli. Everybody else in the 1 minute 21s or higher there. And that's absolutely incredible. And, well, I see a question there from Cy Ansley in the YouTube chat we say hello to, saying, are few people racing the Indy layout? Well, I think that's a glitch for our time tower there. And that's why we're not going to put too much faith in these laps until we do see our way to the grid there, because of course one of the limitations we do have with these post-round broadcasts is that every so often our time tower will glitch in qualifying and therefore show erroneous times, and it doesn't account for any lap times where drivers do cut track limits. Rob Winter there gets ahead of James Connolly, the 2 UK Sim Racing teammates there. He squeezes ahead by a tenth by the smallest of margins, and well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are just waiting now for Alex Brown and also Darian Giacovelli to complete the laps. Well, Brown comes into the pit lane. There's nothing more he can do, he says, and Giacovelli makes his way around here with a minute left to go, so he'll get this lap in. He will be the last of our starters unless he manages to make a rather significant improvement here, because he's a second off of the next man of Hughes, but he comes across the timeline, and for Giacovelli, that is not an improvement by the looks of things, so therefore that is going to be qualifying complete. I can tell you one thing, he may be towards the back of the field in terms of his pace, but one thing he's not towards the back of the field in is in the grace of his livery right now, and that is definitely a stunner out there. And, well, hopefully for Darren, he can move forward, because we always love to see drivers who come through the back of the field and make some great progress. Oh, goodness me, that's a big slide there for Graham Hill Bend, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was a bit of a premature downshift, causing the rear tyres to spin loose there. That is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and as qualifying comes to a close, well, we will walk you through that grid very shortly as all the drivers will get ready to make their way onto the grid for round number 2 of the championship. So as all our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 2. Taking pole position then, when all invalid laps and also the Indy Loop laps are accounted for, it is going to be Alberto Crivelli who takes pole position for Effect Simulations, and the only driver in the session to set a 1:20. Well done to him, that's a phenomenal lap in the McLaren. He'll be joined on the front row by the Mercedes AMG Evo from Pace Worx eSports of James Powlesland. On row 2, it's Austin William Campbell for Effect Simulations ahead of James Armstrong for Brabham Motorsport. We'll then have Fury Sim Sports Stuart Reynolds starting 5th ahead of Joe Newman, pole sitter in the pro class there. Well done to him for Altitude 3M eSports, and he's the only pro inside and otherwise dominated by elite top 10. Well, I can imagine the rumours for Joe for elite will be circulating there, but I think many also be of the camp of Joe for pro if they're a fan of the Altitude 3M eSports team. And then we do have on row number 4 Daniel Stasuk ahead of his teammate for NJB Performance, and that will be Nils Buckerge. And then from the German driver, it will come to Milton Tomlinson Dennis for World of Racing STR Motorsports. He lines up in 9th for the United Kingdom ahead of his fellow countryman who completes the top 10 for DDK with Race Anywhere, and that will be Sam Derbyshire. Outside the top 10, we come on to row number 6, and best of the rest in 11th. Starting will be Pace Worx eSports Jarrett Lee. He'll be in the company of Tobias Kruken for Thorpec Precision Racing, and behind the German driver will be the Briton of Ryan Davies, the second of our pro drivers. Darryl Norquette will join him on the 7th row of the grid for Racing Forces, and then we will have the man who didn't quite have it in qualifying in the end. It'll be DDK Race Anywhere's Ruben Berings, who starts in 15th place, but keep your eyes out for the Belgian in the Audi. The Audi is looking very fast in race trim, as I understand it. The Australian driver, Simon Bamber, lines up alongside him. In fact, that's the New Zealand flag there. I'll get my geography correct the second time of asking. And the Effect Simulations Carbon driver will be in the company behind him of the 2 pro drivers of Nathan Foster and Cy Anthony for UK Sim Racing Price, the team that's dedicated to the Wales' only Formula 1 Grand Prix driver, and that is Tom Price, but more on that a little bit later. From the Welshman, we then come to the Belgian of Brett Berings, and well done to him for taking the AM pole position for DDK with Digital Motor Art, but the Belgian's in close company there from his teammate of Tom Weston, so look out for them on the front of the AM row grid. Behind them, starting 21st, it is going to be Neil Kenyon. Watch out for him after the disappointment that was Daytona. The UK Sim Racing Price Trial, we're looking to move forward this time around, but he'll be in the company of Peter Duke for DDK with Digital Motor Art. We then do have Charles Philippe starting 23rd, a bit out of position than the Belgian driver, but he can move forward for DDK with Race Anywhere. And we've got Pigeon Racing Sean Cranley-Swash alongside him starting 24th. 25th as the formation lap gets underway is Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Stewart, and he will be ahead of Xander Hill for Tiki Simsport. And then it is going to be none other than Simon Oldfield, who starts 27th for Hoop Hearted, ahead of your rookie pole sitter. Well done to him, that's a brilliant pole lap there. Pavel Brewers for DWR with SimCoach Setups Racing. Behind the Polishman, it will be the Briton of John Davis for the wrong stuff, and that's plenty of the right stuff there for second place in the rookie class, and he was just able to do so ahead of Dan Oliver Fox by the best part of 200ths there, with the privateer completing in top 30. Outside the top 30, we'll then have James Connie for UK Sim Racing Stewart, ahead of Steve Hughes, and the UK Sim Racing Price Trial will then be followed up by Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing. Darren Sharp starts 34th for Old Duty Cars, and then we do have well out of position there for Effect Simulations Carbon. It's going to be James Ibrahim who starts 35th in the Lamborghini. He's going to try and muscle his way through. He'll also be in the company there of Nathan Anstis for UK Sim Racing Hill. Casper Stunstead starts 37th there, the Dane having a dismal qualifying session. He'll be in the company of Alex Brown for Slow and Steady Racing, with your top 40 completed by Daniel Pace for Old Duty Cars, and Made for Racing's Jack Bark, who as well really struggling in qualifying, it would seem. Starting 41st will be Casper Brotner for Old Duty Cars, ahead of Stuart Pearson for Slow and Steady Racing, and then we do have none other and Jordan Jones started 43rd ahead of BJ Alvarez for Push and Standard. Your final full row of the grid will consist of Christopher Bates for LLA, and we do have alongside him there none other than Simon Cheshire. And starting last but not least on the grid will be Darian Giacovelli. Now, I have been informed that BJ Alvarez has decided to start from the pit lane, so we will have a 46 car grid going racing, not 47 cars, but I presume he will be leaving the pit lane and going racing, and in just a good time as well, ladies and gentlemen, because we are now about to go racing here for what will be the best part, I suspect, to about 45 laps or 60 minutes of racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and it's over to Alberto Gavarelli to take us to green flag racing. And there he goes. He leaves it quite early in the day to go, but he does. And Alberto Gravelli gets his green flag racing here for round number 2 of the championship as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. 3 wide further and back there. And Stuart Reynolds getting very muscly in the Ford Mustang up the inside. Austin William Campbell goes sideways onto the gravel. And as they all coming through up towards Druids Bend right now, it's look left, look right. And we've got an NJB machine going sideways on around there. And I think all the sea coming charging on into the instant. It's drama there early on. And it's absolute calamity. It's a wrecking yard coming in towards Druids Bend. And well, as our cameramen try to pick up all the pieces of the footage, well, I can imagine there that's going to completely upset the starting field. We'll have to try and understand what's happened there a little bit later. I have to get some replays of that one. And I think we could make an entire highlight reel just out of understanding what's happened there. But still, we can't hold on to it for too long because we've got plenty more to go. And well, as we do see none other than Alberto Gravelli making his way on through Hawthorns. He's making a break already. That McLaren is absolutely dialed in. But here in the battle for second right now, James Powlesland's had a brilliant start to hold on to this position, but he's under huge pressure, and that's a move looking up the inside through Dingledale. Keep it clean, boys. Oh, goodness me, there's contact between the two of them, and it sends Powlesland into the gravel and to the barrier. He will tap the barrier there for a brief moment, but I think it's a scratch, and as he brings it back together, the Pace Worx Mercedes now has got to rejoin, but going too wide at the best of times is very challenging, and well, goodness me, in the end, they didn't quite get away with it, but as he rejoins, well, Reynolds now moves up into second with the elite leader being running off into the distance, and the pro leader just behind him in the form of Joe Newman. One lap complete. We've got plenty more laps to come here, and Joe Newman right now having a very happy day of this. Further back, Darren Norquette, he's had a great start here, holding on to 9th place overall, but what is also known as second in class. And as they head up the rise and in towards Druids Bend, well, let's show you those overall standings for our top 35 here, as it's definitely been a huge shake-up at the start. That major incident causing a lot of chaos and carnage, but in all of it, well, the biggest gainers of it all, John Davis, all the way up into 22nd. He's gained 7 places overall, 1 in class to move into the lead of the rookie class. And well, he's put plenty of distance over, and well, it's absolute tragedy for a number of drivers who qualified very well in the rookie class, none more so than Pavel Brewers, who's in the pit lane right now and car undergoing major repair work. And well, we will get some replays of what happened in short order. But as all drivers head onwards, we do look to Rob Windsor here, who right now in the battle with Simon Oldfield, the battle of the 2 McLarens, and they're fighting over 3rd place in the AM class. And well, this equates to 17th place overall. And well, the biggest casualties we've really seen of that open lap incident were casualties of the pro class, as I believe we just had the driver get it very wrong coming on through. And in fact, I think James Powlesland has gone around on the exit of Hawthorns. I briefly saw a car going sideways at the corner of my eye, but right now from that was a look up the inside from Oldfield. Couldn't quite find it there, but it puts Wins under mental pressure, and Oldfield now looking for an opportunity here as they make the way onwards. We ride on board here with Oldfield, but you'll see we're going to have another car on the right of our picture shortly. There it is, and that's Rob Windsor going as defensive as he can here, but Oldfield's going to try and get the overspeed here for Hoof-Hearted. He's looking one way, he's looking the other. It's going to be a drag race up towards the opening corner. Here they go, but here goes Peter Duke behind, and Duke having a much happier start to his day this time around. Let's get on the nose camera there of the DDK with Digital Motor Art 77 Acura, and we'll up the inside goes Oldfield. Windsor in the end has to park the bus, but he's going to go deep, and as they make the way out the corner, Windsor gets it back there. Now Oldfield will be side by side with Duke coming down in towards Graham Hill Bend, and well, Duke's going to cut back here, and well, John Davis are not too far behind. The rookie leader will be hoping they push onwards. Sean Cranny Swash is not too happy about how that went, and as he brings it back together through the left-hander, it does look as though that right now, side by side, Duke and Oldfield, they're absolutely going hammer and tongs for each other here. Neither driver back it off, and Sean Cranny Swash at this point is going, guys, can I try and get involved in this? And they're both saying to him, there's not enough room on the circuit. Well, he's going to have to be inventive here, Cranny Swash. He's going to have to think about whether he can get a cutback run on the pair of them, and we're heading in towards Westfield Bend this time down the Daytona Straight. There's no way through, and John Davis at this point will be thinking, okay lads, just keep the pace up, keep it clean, and let me pull away from the rest of the rookies, because Richard Jones to the sides will gap back as we do look back to Richard Jones. Here is your 2nd place rookie driver, and with the slow and steady racing Acura right now, steadily making its way on the round circuit, and he's gained 3 places since the starting class. He's not going to be too upset about that. But speaking of upsets there, we'll right now cite Anthony. He won't be too upset about the fact he stayed where he is in the elite class since the start of the race, how he's gained 5 places overall, but he's now settling down into a rhythm as he heads in towards Paddock Hill Bend. Brett Berings, the AM leader, is right behind him, and Neil Kenyon, well, look at that. We said watch out for Kenyon, in the fact he had a lot of disappointment last time out at Daytona. It didn't quite go his way, so therefore we could expect him to potentially make a lot of progress here in this race today, and he's doing exactly that. 2nd currently in AM, and right on the back of the AM class leader, and Brett Berings didn't really have too much pressure on him over the race distance at Daytona, because everyone else in the AM class seemed to find a way to get it wrong, whereas he seemed to find all the right answers. And that's a big bit of snap oversteer there from the Audi R8 of Berings. He brings it back together, and now down they go. But look at that Mercedes, look at that visceral grunt there from the V8 up the inside. And well, this is going to be when, not if, it's going to happen. And it happens immediately as Berings has to give the space. Neil Kenyon up the inside, going defensive now in towards Westfield Bend. And well, it's going to be a change of the AM lead there as Jules Philippe trying to help his teammate out, just watching here. But I think now the dynamic of the radio might be slightly different. He might be saying to Brecht over the radio, look Brecht, I can get ahead of you, and if I can get ahead of you, I can get ahead of Neil, and I can pull him back to you. However, understandably right now, there will be a grace period where I think Jules will be told, just give Brecht an opportunity to try and get the place back, and that's what a good team will always do. They'll always try to work together to give their drivers the opportunity to go fighting, but they won't to step on each other's toes, particularly when they're in two different racing classes. But across the timeline they go, and right now Philippe is just staying behind and watching the Corvette as the Audi of Brett Berings tries to get back into that battle. But brilliant move there from Neil Kenyon for the lead of the AM class, and credit where it's due, Brett knowing exactly how much space to give and not giving an inch more and making it as difficult as possible for the Mercedes driver. But then coming a bit further down the order, Stuart Pearson here has Simon Bamber for close company, and in front of me he has Darian Giacovelli, and we said do not count this man out, Giacovelli, because of the fact that he does have the ability to qualify quite well. But if he can't qualify well, what he can do is always back at the place in the race. He did exactly that, starting from the back of the field, and the Swazi Gold driver moving all the way up from 12th place in the rookie class all the way up to 4th in classes. Here comes Simon Bamber, the New Zealander, up the inside, and well, right now it's an absolute classic from the Kiwi, as Milo Giacovelli just stays positioned there to make sure that Stuart Pearson in the slow and steady racing BMW can't find a way through. And that BMW, a very bulky car, much like the Ford Mustang, really the first of the big bulky front engine rear-wheel drive GT3s, and heading in towards Surtees. It's not going to change here, and we wouldn't expect it to be fair. This Porsche under braking is one of the most dialed in, and we're rolling out there. You can see the difference in lines, and even though Giacovelli missed his apex by the best part of about half a car's width, he was still able to get the power down and match that BMW on corner exit speed. They're heading in towards Hawthorne's Bend. We see them off into a distance, and as we do, we need to take a look back at the race start, ladies and gentlemen, and understand what exactly happened. And well, here's your replay to explain, or a number of replays to try and explain what happened on turns 1 to 2 on lap number 1. Now we take a look back to the race start here, and I believe we are going to try and get on board with Simon Cheshire firstly, because he was towards the back, and I think you might have seen a lot of what happened at the beginning of this race. Well, he started quite far back. In fact, noting there, intriguingly, that the last 6 cars started very far back, so they're not going to see the incident until it's too late, albeit they'll come through the corner here. The whole field starting to cluster up here, makes his way out the corner, and as he does so, well, I think so Cheshire, they reacted a bit late to what's happened, but everything's happened well before he's arrived at the scene of the incident, so it's all gone very wrong for them. We come back once again to the start of the race. Let's take a look to James Conley this time, who found himself right in the middle of all of it, and well, the number 46 driver here in honour of one of his heroes, Valentino Rossi. Well, he got green flag racing. I think where the race started as well, caught out a few drivers coming into that final corner. Now he's going to be a little bit further up the road. He was in at the top 30 as it all went wrong. We are going to see there, that was Austin William Campbell make his way back on. Conley disappeared and reappeared. Well, he got into the brakes there a bit too late as well, and everybody careened into the scene of the incident. Car going up onto its roof there. Can we get a bit earlier and further up the field to explain what happened? Can we get a bit of footage from Daniel Stasuk, who ended up in tears over the race start? The answer is yes, we can. And can we get a better camera angle of what happened? I think we might be able to, as he made his way in. So Stasuk having a bit of a difficult start, made his way through the corners, down and around, and we saw Austin William Campbell get ejected, and it was Stasuk who lost it there in the NJB Performance machine. Car goes around in the middle of the road at that point. He can't do anything. He tries to get back together, and he almost does so, but we haven't got the most flattering camera angles there, and that's then when everyone also came to the scene of the incident. I think we might be able to get one last perspective of what happened. This will be Pavel Brewers, who was a bit further down. In fact, I think we're going to get a view from Casper Tunsted's car, the Peak Performance machine, the privateer, as he made his way away. And can we get a drone camera over the top of them? We'll see if we can. In fact, we're going to get it on board here. This is the best we are going to get. And, well, as they made the one in, and with Casper Tunstad here coming down through the corner. He's going to come up the hill, and, well, onto the brakes they went, and, well, he pulled over to the right-hand side. Everyone else comes careening into the scene, and Casper Tunstad able to get away from that. And, well, I think we actually got some footage from Tom Weston as well, and I know we are dwelling on this quite a bit, ladies and gents, but the reason for this is given how significant the incident was, and, well, I think from Weston we might be able to get some footage from the nose of the car here to explain. So he went green flag racing, Bannon at the time, and as he made his way over the rise into Paddock Hill Bend, so Austin William Campbell's now in the gravel, and we have already had our NJB Performance car come sliding back onto the road very shortly. There it is, and now Weston sees everything unfold, puts the brakes on, goes one way, goes the other, and then gets collected, gets turned around, and, well, at that point, it really was just everyone piling to the scene. The car rolling there, we couldn't quite see who it was, but that is essentially your opening lap story in terms of lap number 1, but also what we have is a bit of a replay for what happened to James Powlesland a little bit later on, and this was on lap number 1, and focusing in particular on our 786 driver in his side-by-side moment here with the number 5 Ford Mustang. I mean, to be fair to them, they both wanted the space, both on cold tyres, and both fighting into the tightest apex corner of them all here at Brands Hatch. It was only going to go one way for us on the outside, and unfortunately for James Powlesland, as much as he wanted the place, in the end, Stuart Reynolds wanted it a bit more. I'm not saying that's the way the stewards will see it, but that's definitely how it ended up between the two of them. I think they might have words after the race is complete. But without further ado, we're going to head back to some live racing. And as we come back to plenty of racing, well, all the drivers right now going once again. And, well, as we do, let's bring up the racing positions from all the drivers right now. We did lose about 3-4 laps as a result of taking a look back at all that footage. So we do apologise for that. The time table will gradually update itself in due course. But as all the racing goes on, well, we do have a bit more fighting here. And that is Nils Bocage making his way around the outside there of Milton Tomlinson Dennis. So we come back to a brilliant battle there between the Ford and the Corvette driver, and just in time we catch that as they rolled on through. I'm about to try and understand what exactly happened with regards to the opening lap incident in terms of how the stewards will see it, but I'm not going to put the finger on anyone there, to be honest, because I've got no idea exactly who's at fault for what. I just simply can tell you that we did see the NJB Performance machine of Stasuk go around, and that was at the epicenter of it all, albeit I think he might have just lost it, and unfortunately, as sometimes does happen at these tighter circuits, cars go off, they careen back onto the road, no matter how much co-op control is executed by the driver, and in the end, well, everyone else has to try and take evasive action as best as possible. And, well, that doesn't just happen in the simulator, it happens in reality. Indeed, if anybody was here at the Brands Hatch circuit as of earlier this year, many of you may remember, in fact, no, in 2024, you may remember a huge red flag incident that happened down Clearways, which led to a premature end to the racing by 2 hours because it completely disintegrated one of the Armco barriers coming down towards turn number 9, albeit I can't remember the racing series of that, but it does happen at Brands Hatch more so than others. Indeed, there's plenty of stories of cars ending up in trees, including back in 2022 when the Joe Smart Motorsport McLaren 720 ended up in the tree line coming out of Dingledale Corner after an altercation with Rafael Marciello's Acodis ASP Mercedes in a free wide moment with a back marker. But that's as far as my history goes back with regards to Brands Hatch and some of the nastier, more modern incidents. But as our drivers continue to make the way on around, well, we look back to Cy Ansley here. We are in lap number 10, and plenty of laps to be accrued before all is said and done. And, well, this is a 60-minute race. However, given the fact we don't have a timer at the top centre of the screen because our timer does not quite work the way we want it to, we're going to keep you up to date with the number of laps, and we are expecting there to be a grand total of 44 laps of racing. So we are almost at the quarter point at this time, so approximately what will be the best part of 10-11 minutes in, and it's been absolutely fantastic so far. Very unfortunate we did have that early incident, but still, incidents happen. But what is in the outside of that incident, and indeed what's left, is some absolutely brilliant racing. As our drivers continue to push onwards, the question there from Leeds Worship Shed: do these cars take damage? Yes, they most definitely do take damage, but we do have fast repairs available, which is if a driver can get a damaged car into the pit lane, they will get the opportunity to repair the car once. It's an instantaneous repair, but they still lose the time for coming into the pit. Do it again, however, and then they have to wait in the pit lane. And depending on the damage model of the different machine in iRacing, at least in these GT3 machines, well, depending if it's a minor scratch, you'll be looking at the best part of 20 seconds to a minute. Major damage, however, you could be looking up to 8 minutes. That's where you've knocked the steering out of complete alignment, alternatively you've taken the wheel entirely off the car. If you have to tow to the pit, you also do have a delay, essentially a simulated towing time, whereby the car, depending on where it is in relation to the pit lane coming out, or coming from the circuit to the pit lane, the further it is away, the longer it takes to tow, and vice versa. It's literally on the front door of the pit lane, then it's a much shorter time if my memory serves me correctly, albeit it's been a bit of a late time with regards to essentially, excuse me, it's been a bit of a late time for me, and since previous racing, indeed, the last time I raced was in season 14 of the GT3 League, and since then I've absconded back to the commentator booth. But as all the drivers carry on here, we do say hello there to Tom Weston, who gave us the advice to get on board with him in order to get a prime position of the view of what happened, and also there Jordan Jones, who we say hello to, and I can understand there's quite a bit of debate as to the Open Lap instant in the YouTube chat, and of course we do ask, ladies and gentlemen, keep it civil at the same time, because we're always open to debate and discussion. But enough about everything that's happened in the past, let's come back to the present, and as we do the proverbial present, that is, Ryan Davies right now in third place here, and right now trying to hold on in the Empire Motorsport machine. The McLaren holding on to third place in its category of Pro, as he is being chased there by Ruben Berings. And right now Ruben Berings not making as much progress as perhaps we expected in this race. That's not to rule him out, to be fair. Strategy is going to be one of the big parts here at Brands Hatch, as the DDK with Race Anywhere 91 continues to stay close. But talking about strategy, why is strategy so important? Well, we've seen already just how tricky overtaking can be here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, with the fact you've got enough room to go too wide, but at most corners going too wide is a question of confidence and whether you're willing to back off the throttle enough in order to respect the fact that you literally only have the room on the tarmac for you, your rival, and in the grass. So therefore it does mean that sometimes if you're just smart on strategy, save some fuel, or you decide to pit early when the opportunity arises, you may be able to leave ahead of your rival just by simply getting yourself some clear air and putting in some fast laps. The only downside is when you do have the best part of 40 plus cars around here, we can see from the circuit map on the top right corner of your screen, finding some clear air in which to be able to get a golden lap in or two, well, that is where the difficulty is going to be. So sometimes it's better to stay out there, and the normal rule of thumb has been that normally drivers inside the top 15 overall, of which these two are nipping at the bottom end of the top 10. Ryan Davies is 10th overall. Well, the idea is nobody wants to give up track position until they absolutely have to come into the pits because the fuel tank is saying it's empty. So it is going to be about guts here, and also it's going to be about the team on the pit wall essentially telling the drivers come in now and keeping an eye on those potential gaps. So the first driver to flinch to come into the pit will be the driver essentially gives information to everybody. You normally see drivers outside the top 20. They're the first because they've got nothing to lose unless they're battling for the rookie lead, because our highest placed rookie at the moment is John Davis, of course, in 23rd place. And the idea being that those drivers, they might as well go for it, 'cause you never know what surprise they can spring on everyone else. But continue to stay on board with Ruben Berings here, and there's no change at the moment. Nathan Foster and Cy Anthony on the back of this group, and Daryl Norquette is 8 tenths up the road in the Racing Forces McLaren. They're very nicely tucked together. Joe Newman, meanwhile, well, he's already checked out in a different postcode, it would seem, after a quarter of the race. But then again, don't rule him out of being in a lead battle, because that Ford Mustang, A, is very thirsty on fuel, but also B, just push up the front. You've got to survive racing around Brands Hatch, and that is a challenge in itself. But speaking of challenges here, Ruben Berings thinks about it, but in the end, the Audi just not having enough time on the legs. That McLaren very quick out the low-speed corners in the initial acceleration phases. This Audi, meanwhile, really picks up speed in third and fourth gear, so very interesting to see the difference of the two machines. The Audi being V10 powered, meanwhile the McLaren being V8 with twin turbo powered, and as they head out of Machine Curve and back into Sterling's, no change between them as they roll the way around. But onwards they go and up towards more places. Well, we do see our drivers coming down in towards turn number 9, and as we do, well, let's talk a little bit more about further on down the field. And I think we need to talk about Jordan Jones here, who started in 8th place in the rookie class, and right now is running a very happy 2nd place in rookie. And we're coming on through Machine Curve right now. He's got a nice gap of 3 seconds to BJ Alvarez behind. You'll see Alvarez there in the pink machine giving chase. And well, meanwhile, it is to BJ Alvarez a comfortable gap to Stuart Pearce, and meanwhile, the best part of 20 seconds. And I can imagine that might be where the rookie field, bar a couple of drivers who were able to squeeze their way through all the chaos and carnage on the open lap, those three were able to get them through. Meanwhile, the rest of the rookie field has either been impeded or impacted in some form and description. So the rookie class, I think right now, might be a little bit of a quiet race all the way to the end, as we see things go a bit wrong. But speaking of things, well, they were going right early on. Alberto Gavilli, well, the effect simulations at McLaren right now is being caught up to by Stuart Reynolds. My good lord, that Ford Mustang of Stuart Reynolds, much like Joe Newman's in Pro, for a car that we wouldn't expect, on paper at least, to be the fastest around Brands Hatch, well, they've definitely found some magic, those Ford Mustang drivers out there, because they are really turning out the work here. And Reynolds right now, he is only half a second off the back of Gravelli, and I wouldn't be surprised here with the aid of a little bit of a traffic, and that is going to be none other than Darren Giacovelli, our rookie 5th place driver. Well, this is going to get very close to me. They're going to turn 1. He looks for it, does Reynolds, but he's a bit too far back. But that, he's feeling very confident here. That is a statement from the Fury Sim Sport driver. which is, I know I've got the pace to chase you because I don't mind looking up the inside of the paddock hill bend, even if I'm not close up. I don't mind sending a message to you, which is I can use the time wherever I want here, and this is going to put some mental pressure on Gravelli, no doubt about it. The 90 McLaren driver will have seen that and thought to himself, he's got a lot of confidence behind. I can't let him get to me, but that's the one thing you don't want as a driver. When you see your rival coming up behind you, and he's taking very different lines there in order to try and look for moves, but he's doing it in places whereby you know he's not going to be able to go for it, but he's really trying to send a message. That is where it's all about the mental fortitude here for the Effect Simulations 90, because as long as he doesn't make a mistake, he'll have plenty of space with which to hold on to the position. He can make this McLaren as wide as he wants. That Ford Mustang, all it needs is one small mistake here from our leader, and I would say that Reynolds will be looking for that move very quickly. But up the hill and in towards Sheen they come this time, and with the body language of the cars would suggest that really it is in those medium speed corners. That's where the Mustang is able to gain, because you can see around the back loop, Hawthorne's Reynolds gained a lot of time. The rest of the GP loop doesn't gain as much time, and if anything, it goes to our Gravelli as they come onto another lap. But the opposite side of the coin might be here, that Alberto Gravelli might be protecting his left side tyres and might be playing not to change them. Reynolds might be really throwing everything at this and just seeing if he can gain the time. But meanwhile, hold up a second, that's almost to the trees there, coming out of out of Westfield into Dingledale, and that is Brett Berings, the man who was contesting the lead of the AM class, has ended up going backwards there. And well, what exactly's happened to it is the big question. We're going to get a replay of that when we can. Sam Derbyshire as well has lost a number of places in recent history, and as he comes on back through, the elite driver there bringing himself back together. We've got some replays to provide very shortly. Oh, I think Derbyshire, that might just be a brief glitch on our timing tower, whereas what's happened to Berings is definitely an instant. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, let's get your replay to explain what happened to our AM driver. And here comes the replay. Now, this was Brett Berings making his way at the time in towards Hawthorne's. He was being chased by Simon Oldfield. They were fighting for second place in AM. Just up the road, Neil Kenyon runs wide there, grass on tyres. Okay, I suspect he's going to go, oh no, I thought he was going to go wide there and had the car cut loose. No, bounced off of the apex curb of the Westfield Bend. We don't normally see that in these GT3s these days, but I suspect right now the rebound there on that Audi just a little bit too sensitive for the high curb, and that causing the rear of the car to skip out. Plus the fact he had grass on the rear tyres, that would not have helped at all. That would have taken the grip levels down, and a mistake, an uncommon one, but a Brett Berings moment there, which we're not going to forget for the simple reason that that's going to really turn this race on its head in terms of the top three fight for the AM class. We're going to head back to your live racing. And as we do, still plenty more to come, of course. We've got a long distance here in this race, and we come back to that brilliant battle for second place in the elite class here, as we do see going on to lap number 17. It's still Darren Orcat holding on with Ryan Davies, Ruben Berings, Nathan Foster and Cy Anthony all in the scrap pack. And as they come on through, well, that's Jarrett Lee in front, minus a front bumper on his Mercedes. The elite Mercedes driver there, definitely going for a bit of weight reduction, but that is not going to help him on the straights, thankfully. He doesn't have, oh, no, that is very, very late, that snap. And Ryan Davies goes around there, and well, I can imagine the rear of the car cut loose, and in the end he had nowhere to go, and I think he might have pinballed off of the side of Ruben Berings' Audi, unless I'm mistaken. And well, I can imagine there, that was an absolute horror show of a moment for Ryan Davies. I think he came down into the corner, the car went one way on him, and then he tried to correct it the other way, and it absolutely kicked like a mule. And well, for Ryan Davies, that's going to put him out of that fight. Goodness me, that could have been tears for that entire pro pack, but it wasn't quite tears in the end, just tears for one driver, but still the same. The 85 driver there will lose there, and there's even more drama. Hold up a second, who on earth's that gone round? We're trying to understand there. That is Giacovelli, who's had a bit of a moment, and Darren Giacovelli having a nightmare, but we couldn't quite see who's lost their front bumper, given the fact the car's blacked out in the front now. But we'll try and understand. I think that was Nathan Foster there who's had it go wrong. Yes, it is, because he's making his way up the hill into our camera, and Nathan Foster, well, he's a bit camera shy there and toes to the pits. He's been in contact with Darren Giacovelli. We don't have a replay of that, unfortunately, but that explains the story between them. Coming back, meanwhile, to turn number one. And well, Darren Orcat, he won't have been embroiled in all of that. The only thing he'll be thinking about right now is I need to try and find my way past Jarrett Lee, because he's costing me time here, and Ruben Berings and Cy Anthony are all happy for it, as Charles Philippez has fallen a bit further back for the back of this battle, and we can see the Corvette driver here making his way over the rise of Druids Bend right now, with Neil Kenyon and Simon Oldfield in hot pursuit. Through they go then, and almost the next half of the lap. Looking a bit further back, Peter Duke here having a reasonable run of this race so far. He's chasing after third place. That's Rob Windsor holding on just in front. And well, if you're curious, by the way, with regards to the naming conventions of the UK Sim Racing teams out there, we do have UK Sim Racing Price. That's in tribute to the Welsh Formula 1 driver of Tom Price, the only Formula 1 driver that Wales has ever produced. Unfortunately, he lost his life in the 1977 South African Grand Prix. I had to just go through my memory bank. I'm trying to do this without looking at my notes, and I'll make sure I'm tested by Formula 1 knowledge, although I'm not as good as Sebastian Vettel. But Tom Price unfortunately losing his life, and the only reason I know about Tom Price before Cy Anstey reached out to me to explain the story behind the team, is the fact that if you go to Anglesey Circuit on the northwestern tip of Wales, you will find in the full Grand Prix layout that there's a straight named after Tom Price. It's known as the Price Straight, and that's in tribute to the man. But speaking of tributes here, well, there's more coming as we do have Cy Anstey up the inside there of Darren Norquette for second place in the pro class, and he's going to try and close the door there. He does. Norquette's going to come back here. The sparks fly from the under trays, and Norquette's on the inside. And well, I believe there it's going to be, there's a bit of contact between the two of them as Darren Norquette comes absolutely blazing in. Ruben Berings says, okay, get your handbags out, gents. I'm taking it off for you. And Ruben Berings sneaks his way on through. A lovely bit of opportunities there for the 91 driver. And I think right now Darren Norquette's going to be fuming. Cy Anthony's going to be a bit fuming as well, because they're going to be running. How on earth has that Audi just suddenly got in front of us? And well, Ruben, whilst Darren and Cy were having a little bit of a scrap, he just decided, you know what, I haven't got time for that, and he makes his way onwards. But as they head up towards Hawthorne's Bend, well, right now, the one thing we can tell you about this Audi is that it's in the capable hands of Ruben Berings, but the problem is it hasn't got the pace that we've seen from it at Daytona, at least. This is a very different style of circuit, but the reason I mention that is I would imagine that Darren Norquette in that McLaren has been looking very quick, and the Mercedes Cy Anthony right behind, they will be looking to come back in very shortly. Jarrett Lee, meanwhile, well, not to be rude about him, but he is the cork in the bottle that's really causing this pro pack to keep bunching up. He can race, by the way, like this. He's not required to give way to them. They are fighting for overall position on circuit, but Jarrett Lee right now, you can see, look at the body language for Ruben Berings. That is a message of, can you get out the way, please? He nipped into the inside of him in towards the final corner. Darren Norquette, meanwhile, immediately makes his way into the pit lane here and decides, okay, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I'm going to go for strategy. So he parks it on up, and now as he does so, that is going to be an opportunity here for him to try and undercut. Meanwhile, Austin William Campbell now at the inside of Cy Anthony, so it's all falling apart a little bit here as Austin William Campbell takes the place and Cy Anthony lets it go, but that's going to cost him time, and Ruben Berings will break onwards. But Darren Norquette, of course, is going to gamble on the undercut strategy here and see whether he can make that magic work. But as they continue the way onwards, I think we might be able to get a replay of how all that battling started between Cy Anthony and Darren Norquette. Give us a brief moment and we might be able to take a look back, and in fact, yes, we can take a look back, and it all started with Cy Anthony making a pass on Ruben Berings, and here is the replay to explain it all. It all began here with Cy Anthony looking up the inside of Ruben Berings on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. So Berings not having the best of runs through Surtees they went. Anthony up the inside. There's so much confidence in that Mercedes, and Berings in fact going out to the grass. So that's where the first move was made, and now it's Cy Anthony to try and come through and make another move here as they made the way onwards towards Hawthorne's, but he wasn't quite close enough to do so, but he was building the pace here as he made his way on through, and the UK Sim Racing Price driver noticing that Norquette really being held here as they came off of the apex of Westfield Bend. So I think at this point UK Sim Racing Price driver was thinking, oh, it's an opportunity, I've just got to pick the right time to go for it. And again, you can see Norquette so close to the back of Lee in front and just not quite able to find the right place to pass. So out of Stirling's they went, clear ways unfolded, and here absolutely pushed it as much as possible. Norquette decided to look up the inside, and this is what triggered it. So Norquette looked to the move, couldn't find it, and Cy Anthony cut back to the inside here, and this was gold-plated. Well, of course, we saw what happened afterwards when these two had their scrap up into Druids Bend, and we're going to catch that all from the exterior camera here once again, because Cy Anthony made the move stick for a brief moment. However, Darren Norquette, understandably, wasn't too happy about it and said, no, you don't, and in the end went onto the brakes when a bit too late, overscored the position, and then it was Ruben Berings who said, okay guys, when you're done, I'll take this one and I'll take that one as well, and that's how they settled the differences. Let's head back to your live racing. Some more racing to come, and as we do have our drivers continue to push onwards, well, we do see plenty more, expect plenty more here, as race distance now is heading towards the halfway point. In fact, we are dead on the halfway point at this point, 22 laps in the tank, and we will be seeing another 22 before all is said and done over the 60 minutes, we're to understand it. And well, Neil Kenyon here has fallen back behind Simon Oldfield, and for these two, they've yet to pit, so there's been some drama that's happened to Neil Kenyon that we have not quite seen, but Oldfield has taken the place off him in recent moments, so it's absolutely going this way, that way, and every single way, as Brett Berings, meanwhile, having not pitted, but having had that off earlier on, well, right now he tries to come back at Sean Cranley-Swasher and get the place back as Giles for the Pets into the pit lane, and we see Sean Cranley-Swasher decide to pull himself off the circuit as well, not to give Brett Berings an opportunity to take the place off him, but more to respect the fact that fuel's running low, and I think he feels as though there's no point fighting for the position. Now, whilst all this has been happening in the midfield's been absolutely brilliant today in terms of battling in the Pro and also the AM class. Elite class, Alberto Gravilli versus Stuart Reynolds. Well, Stuart Reynolds has fallen off the back of the McLaren driver, and we were wondering whether Reynolds could maintain this pace. I would imagine that there's also been some involvement of some back markers here, not in terms of causing incidents, but the natural ebb and flow where you do have drivers get in between two lead lap cars. They will naturally work out one way for one driver and not the other way for the other, and vice versa. But I think this might have just opened up the gap a little bit as Gravilli sets a new personal best there, but as he comes across the line, 21.493, more lap times piling on in from our drivers, and indeed the pace continues to move onwards. But as all the drivers push onwards, I see Newman pass there asking the YouTube chat, do we have peak site anti back now that the Mercedes is back? And I wouldn't be surprised if we do, to be honest, because I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. A few years ago, well, when I say a few years ago, about 2 years ago, if my memory serves me correctly, there was the legendary battle of the season in one of the GT3 League seasons. I'm going to go out there on a whim and say it was Season 9. I'm sure Si's going to correct me here if I'm wrong on this one, because we are going back the best part of at least a year and a half. His brilliant battle between himself and Sam Congreve for victory in the championship, and indeed on the road, and the legendary battle strategy that was at Road Atlanta in the season finale. But as we recall those old stories, we must come back to the present as well, because we could go through the Anorak and the history books of all time for UK Sim Racing Championships. Indeed, there's been so many great battles over the years gone by, and in fact, I'm actually quite sad to say Sam Congreve's name right now and not see him on the grid here. Sam, if you are listening right now, please do come back, because we absolutely miss you out on the grid. And indeed, seeing you racing alongside Joe Newman was one of the biggest highlights of the Empire Motorsport team. Not to say they're not a highlight of a team, but it's not quite the same when you haven't got a bit of Congreve in there. But as Jordan Jones makes his way on through, BJ Alvarez is closing up behind him, and well, as they roll their way in towards the left-hander there of turn number 3, well, Alvarez closing a little bit on Jones here, and the pace is gradually coming his way more and more. Now, speaking of drivers who are showing pace, let's look at those overall standings. Indeed, we haven't looked at them for some time because we've been so engrossed in all the battles and classes. Well, right now, we do have 3 drivers inside the top 10 who are not elite, and that's your pro leader of Joe Newman, and second and third in the pro class are Ruben Berings and Ryan Davies. But as all the drivers continue to keep their heads down here, well, mistakes could come at any moment, and here we ride on board with BJ Alvarez as the push the standard driver in the 17 from the US of A. Well, he'll be thinking about an opportunity on Jordan Jones, but can he make some magic happen here? And the answer may be not at the moment. Both of them in the Porsche 992, and the reason we echo that is because this will come down to the setups they've chosen and the driver's ability to get the most out of the car. And stepping aside there will be one of the Effect Simulations cars. That's the Lamborghini Huracan of James Ibrahim deciding to step side as into the pits. It's a late call there for our driver Jordan Jones. You could see, you notice how the rear of the car actually slid loose there. He decided to come in right at the last minute, did Jones. Now, whether it's a team call or whether it's a driver call, I'm not sure, but he almost lost it on pit entry there, and well, as a result, Alvarez will gain some momentum and he might be able to leapfrog ahead. Presuming they both have the same stationary pit stop time, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Alvarez get at least parity when he makes his pit stop as a result of that. But I'm waiting to see there, because the strategy element requires Alvarez to come in at some point. He has already made 1 pit stop today, but that's where he started from the pit lane, as there's a car up on the grass there on the exit hill bend. I believe that's James Ibrahim, and his day is going from good to bad to worse over the course of the distance indeed. I don't think he can get much worse at the moment, at least. He's just not having a happy day. But as we do see there, a backing off of one of our Ferraris, and I believe that is the lap down Ferrari of Dan Oliver Fox, one of our many rookie drivers unfortunately caught up in that open lap incident. Well, Peter Duke there flashing his lights, very happily so, because he's got Casper Tunstep breathing down his neck, albeit 2 different class drivers, with Duke right now running in 12th place, his highest position so far this season, but he's holding on to 2nd place in the AM class. And well, Sam Derbyshire steps aside there. Sam Derbyshire going very slowly down to turn number 1. I believe he's just left the pit lane, and that would explain why he's going slowly, because the one thing about the Brands Hatch circuit, something rather unique to this circuit compared to most circuits in the United Kingdom and indeed around the world. Well, keep in mind this is no longer an FIA Grade 1 circuit, as Grade 2 status, as a result of the fact that the safety standards of FIA Grade 1 cannot be adhered to, as otherwise you'd have to demolish half of the paddock and all the surrounding facilities in order to accommodate the runoff areas. One of the things about this circuit is it does not have a full pit blend line. It's rather unique at Brands Hatch in the fact you blend directly into the apex of Paddock Hill Bend, and therefore it means it's a very tricky circuit. If you have a pit stop and you have drivers making their way across the start-finish line, as a driver exiting the pit lane, you are expected to give a lot more caution and discretion to those who are out of the circuit delivering laps compared to other circuits where you naturally, say Monza for example, you have plenty of space and you have a really notable blend line which you do not cross until you get to the end of it, whereas here at Brands Hatch it's pretty much out the pit lane and into Paddock Hill Bend you go, and that can lead to some drama there. But speaking of drama right now, Stuart Reynolds into the pit lane from second place, as we do have his teammate behind of Nils Pakag as he rolls his way in towards turn number 1 once again. Well, these two right now come out where they came in, with Ruben Berings in front, yet to pit, the same for Milton Tomlinson Dennis and Alberto Grilli. The big question will be, will Grilli be brought back into the pack? We'll have to wait to see, because he's one of a limited number of drivers now who have yet to take stops as we make our way towards the end of 2/3 of the race distance. But it's definitely pit stop season right now, and I can imagine anybody who's still out there, the fuel tank, well, they've saved some fuel and they've done a great job of it, but the fuel tank is definitely pointing towards empty rather than full. But as the drivers carry on, I do hear a ring out my ears there of more drivers coming into the pit lane. Indeed, it is pit stop season and then some. And Peter Duke right now having a happy pit stop there in the Acura, and he comes back out ahead of Casper Tunstead, and then Rob Windsor comes out directly behind. That's intriguing. So Windsor there with quite a quick pit stop, and Tunstead meanwhile, I think there's going to be a few swear words underneath the lid of our number 104 driver as he tries to go around the outside there of Peter Duke. Yep, some swear words abound, albeit I think they will be in Danish, because he tried to get ahead of Duke with a faster pit stop. It hasn't worked out. He actually had a slower pit stop, and Peter Duke continuing to hold him in place right now. And Peter Duke here, well, he's just doing his race, he's doing everything he can, but whilst they're scrapping over position, we come back to the front of the field. Alberto Gravelli has made his way back out the pits. Here comes Stuart Reynolds, and look at the delta. Stuart Reynolds, well, you could tell he was pushing hard because he had a much longer pit stop by comparison, an extra 2.5 seconds in the pits compared to Alberto Grilli, and I can imagine that Ford Mustang was using a lot of fuel compared to the McLaren of Grilli, and Reynolds, well, really revealing his hand. Milton Tomlinson Dennis, meanwhile, fighting in for third. He tried to get out ahead of Nils Pakag, and as they roar the way in towards turn number 3, the Corvette is here to stay, or is it? It's the battle of the two American muscle cars right now, and as they head in towards Surtees Bend, well, if the Corvette can stay ahead, this is a huge leap ahead in terms of strategy here for the elite driver. He's going to do it. He gets ahead, but now it's going to be a drag race down towards Hawthorne's Bend, and this is where the Ford Mustang is normally very strong, as we do see the St Vincent Island World of Racing STR Motorsports driver go defensive immediately, sending the message there. The Mustang looms large. It looks menacing. It looks ready to swallow up the Corvette, but as they exit the corner here, will he go for the move? No, he will not. The NJB racing machine of Pakag stays right behind, and as a result, no move being made there as they head through Dingledale and up into Sheen. This is not the place where you could go too wide. We saw that earlier on and what happens there on cold tyres, but as they head up through the left hand of Stirling's Bend, well, right now, Tomlinson Dennis, he will be under a lot of pressure to hold on to this third place spot all the way to the end of the race, and Stuart Reynolds will be looking in his rearview mirror and going, where's the other Ford Mustang gone? My teammate's disappeared, and he's going to notice why, because the Corvette has decided to put itself right in between the two of them. But it's not over yet as they head across that timeline, and the elite class has really been boiling up, as we do see there Leeds Worship Shed cheering on Tomlinson Dennis there, say get in Milton, and right now the team's going to be absolutely crazy over this. They nailed the pit stop, the fastest pit stop of anybody in the elite class so far here today at the Brands Hatch circuit, and well, it has paid off dividends. And that Corvette, well, one thing we are definitely seeing here is that it can be very good on strategy. It does seem to have the ability to save a little bit more fuel, and that fuel being important. However, now that he's got the job done there, the only big question is, did he actually take enough fuel to get to the end of the race? Not saying he hasn't, mind you. I don't want to put the commentator's curse on him, but that's always the thing when you have quick pit stops. Has he intentionally underfueled a little bit here? Potentially with the prospect of being able to fuel save behind somebody. It's a gamble, but drivers do it. At Daytona, we saw plenty do it, but not here. Further back, Darren Norket versus Ruben Berings coming down in towards Hill Bend. There's going to be a swap there because Norket gets ahead. Berings comes up the inside. It's going to be very nip and tuck between them, but he forces the door back open. Norket gives it the space, to be fair, and off the apex they come. And now we're going to ride on board here with the McLaren and Norket, who's got to try and find his way back in as he briefly hits the limits there in third gear. That's not going to help him. Onwards he goes then in towards Hawthorns, and these two right now absolutely nip and tuck between them. And Ruben Berings, well, it was an absolutely miserable day of racing at Daytona after that brilliant pole position lap. But right now, well, I can tell you one thing, it's not letting mentally affect him at all because he is absolutely on the attack. And whilst Joe Newman will have disappeared off into the distance here, and I think will be on course for another pro win, Ruben Berings will definitely get his first podium of the season, and he will get in absolutely brilliant battling style. But Darren Norket's not out of this yet, and we've still got more to come here between these two as they head in towards turn number 9, completing another lap. They'll go on to a 29th lap of the circuit, and we are heading into the final third here. Approximately the best part of 17 minutes to go, and these drivers continuing to push on strong as Darren Norket stayed close. In fact, it's a much better entry into Paddock Hill Bend. You can see it then, the body language of the car. Berings' Audi, it's not comfortable in these medium speed corners. It's one of the big weaknesses of the Audi. It's why we have the Evo 2 package on it. It's because Audi identified with the base R8 LMS model in 2015, it really struggled for stability in high speed corners. Evo 1 improved the high speed stability, then they needed to work on the medium speed stability. That's what you got Evo 2, but it still does have that little gremlin, which is on off-camber medium speed corners. It slides a lot. Darren Norket close, but not close enough, and Ruben Berings right now having to give it everything in order to try and hold on. They stay apart for the brief moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come back together before the race is all over. From them, well, Peter Duke, and there is Sight Anthony clearing Duke as Anthony's just taken his pit stop of the day, and well, Casper Tunstead still watching behind. Sean Cranny-Swash has fallen a long way back, and we've lost somebody in this battle. We have lost, unless I'm mistaken, Rob Windsor, who's had a big fall off the circuit. What exactly has happened to Rob Windsor? Well, we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, so I think we have got a replay, and here is the story of Rob Windsor's trip to the grass. Now, this was only months ago up at Druids Bend. He was by himself at this point, comes through the corner, gets the power down, and the rear of the car just lets go there. Well, he's been looking so smooth, attached to the barrier as well. That's not going to help him. A bit of a frustrating one of that, and then with that, it's all gone a bit backwards. But from that, we also get a replay of the battle between Ruben Berings and Darren Norket for the 9th place overall position. And this was that brilliant fight only moments ago. Let's come back to it. And this was Ruben Berings looking up the inside there. And Darren Norket going a bit deep. He's done that twice now at the Druids Bend, albeit the first time was for a move, but that time it was a mistake of his own doing, it would seem, and Berings seeing the opportunity, cutting back to the inside. You could see Norket wanted to squeeze him, but by the time he'd start to come over, Berings already had his nose there, and well, if he'd come over any further, it would have been tears between the two of them, and that is how the move was made. We'll come back to your live racing, and with it, ladies and gentlemen, it's still 15 minutes or so left on the clock here at Brands Hatch, and this has definitely been a round to remember in season 15, and this could definitely be one of those rounds that is going to tell a lot of stories as the season goes on. Speaking of stories here, let's come back to the battle for third over on in the elite class, and this is going to be the fight here between Milton Tomlinson-Dennis and Niels Pakag as they roar the way in towards turn number 2. And these two still nose to tail as they come on through. We do have a back marker there stepping aside, and that is the Corvette, I believe. Trying to understand who that is stepping aside. That is the Corvette of Giles Philippetts, unless I'm mistaken, who has effectively fallen a lap down. In fact, that can't be Giles Philippetts. He's not that far back in the running order. Trying to understand whose Corvette that is. That's Nathan Anstis. There we go. Anstis Races Machine making its way onwards in the UK Sim Racing livery. And as they come on down, we just wanted to double check as to who that was there, because we're trying to get into the mental position of who's where and whom. And as we do there have none other than Tomlinson-Dennis making his way onwards. Well, right now that Ford Mustang definitely trying to come back as we ride on board, looking down over the front. Lovely camera angle this one. You really get to see the full length of that front bumper and with the bonnet, and that's housing, of course, that Coyote 5-litre V8 engine as they come down into Sterling's. But what can we see in terms of the body language of the cars? Well, the natural thing is a bit of understeer there as he made his way towards the apex of Sterling's through Uppercog. But the problem with regards to that is it's a natural part of the course. Front engine rear wheel drive, you are going to be prone to more understeer than oversteer. Flip side of the coin as well is he's got the dirty air over the front of the car because of the fact he's chasing after the Corvette. into paddock hill bend they go. So he's really fighting against the nose of the car at the moment. And as we see a run wide there from Tomlinson Dennis, this is going to be an opportunity. No, it's not. He didn't want to go for it there. He was of two minds. But this goes to show you why they're elite drivers, because they know when the move's on and they know when it's not. A lesser experienced driver there might have considered going for the dive, but it could have ended up in tears. Both of them using the runoff area. They'll be using tactical off tracks where they can. In front of them is the made for racing machine of Jack Barker, who is right now running a lap down in 9th place in the AM class. He was right in the epicenter of all the chaos that happened on lap number 1, so therefore he yields to the side, lets these two go, and the NJB Performance car, it's staying so close here. If he wanted to get any closer, if he reached out and touched the rear wing of that Corvette, but very different cars, and it's so interesting to see where one is stronger than the other. The Corvette has got the speed in the low speed corners, most definitely, but medium speed corners upwards of the straight. This Ford Mustang from NJB Performance, they have done so much brilliant work on this car, and therefore getting it absolutely right. But from them, back to the battle for third place, or second place I should say, in the pro class, and this is part 2 of the Norket Berings battle. They're back at it again, and we haven't seen how it started, but we're seeing right now how it's going to come to a conclusion. There's a switch back there into All-Fours Bend. That's going to be a very late dive of the brakes. Ruben Berings couldn't quite make it happen, but a good try there, really trying to get into Darren Norket's head, but the McLaren driver for Racing Forces says, no you don't, I've seen that one before. He's probably seen all the videotapes of it was Nigel Mansell's legendary dummy on Nelson Piquet at Silverstone. Different circuit, different machines, but same principle, which is you send it one way, but then actually go the other way to make your rival think you're coming one way, but not. And there, Ruben Berings really trying to sell the dummy, but Darren Norket in the end buying no dummy, but in the end throwing his dummy out of the pram. As they roar the way out to turn number 9, and onwards they go. They've only got 15 minutes left now. We've still got 11 laps of this race, if so. And this battle for second place in the pro class is absolutely building to a crescendo right now. Both of these drivers, they both deserve second, no doubt about it, but only one of them can take it, and we'll have to wait to see who's going to take it in the pro class here, because right now Ruben Berings is absolutely breathing down the neck of Darren Norket's McLaren. But you can see the difference in the braking zones. The Audi is just so much more on point. Oh no, and it's all gone wrong on the rear for Darren Norket. Does he avoid the barrier? No, he doesn't. Just a bit too much speed coming out of Graham Hill Bend. The rear cuts loose, and for Darren Norket, what was looking to be a brilliant battle suddenly ends up in a moment of regret. But as he comes out of Surtees, Ryan Davies goes around the outside in there, and Davies gets it done just in the nick of time. Obviously would have to try to force the issue, and the Empire Motorsport McLaren now takes that third place spot, but Darren Norket is right back with him, and I'm sure there's more to come in this story if Norket has not picked up too much damage in order to win that McLaren. And well, if he can get back in this fight, he may still be in the hunt of a podium. But Ruben Berings at this point, I think the team they won't have wanted it to end like that, but they'll be happy that it's finally ended in his favour. Simon Oldfield out the inside of Sean Crannish-Ross, that's for third place in the AM class. Lovely move there from the very colourful McLaren, I must say. I have to ask him about the colour scheme on that number 24, because right now I thought at first it was the Japanese flag from the Imperial Japanese Navy, albeit it's been restyled out there, and if anything right now it looks as though it's more of a comic style with all the kabooms and the large text on the side of it. And well, I'm getting feelings back to my word art days there, but kaboom it is on the side of that McLaren, and kaboom on circuit there for Simon Oldfield, because up into third in the AM class. And well, we're not going to start waxing lyrical about anything to do with nautical terms already. I know many of you enjoyed what was all the nautical language used at Daytona, and we're going to reserve that for later on this season. Indeed, we're nowhere near the sea at the moment, because the nearest seaside resort to the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is, I believe, you're heading down towards Dover, Folkestone, and also places like that, the best part of 60 minutes drive away. Albeit, none of our drivers will be wanting to race by the seaside at the moment. They'll be wanting to keep it in the car, and as they roar the way around, well, right now Simon Oldfield up into third in the AM class, at least for the time being. However, wait for Sean Crannish-Ross, he may still come back, and there's still time to do so. Coming back to the rookie class, meanwhile, as he dives his way out the inside there, Darren Giacovelli, the 8th place driver in rookie, is your rookie class leader, John Davis. We haven't really talked about him since about 30 minutes ago, and understandably, because he's having a very quiet and happy race at the front of the rookie class field. 16.3 seconds clear of second place man BJ Alvarez, who in turn is 13 seconds clear of Jordan Jones. But right now, John Davis, he pulls this off. I believe he'll be on course for his first ever league win in a UK sim racing series. Don't quote me on that, but as far as my history books go back, I think it'll be his first ever, and well, that would be an absolutely emotional moment for John Davis, who I can tell you, an absolutely lovely driver off the circuit, and on the circuit he's one of the most respectful racers out there. And indeed, he may not be as experienced or up to the pace of some of his rivals out there. He may not be an elite driver, but his mannerisms definitely that of a professional as he heads up towards, oh goodness me, hold the phone, that's Darren Giacovelli's car. It's the barricade at Hawthorne's Bend, rear wings come off. Well, that's a nasty shunt, and doing well, thankfully off the road, but I can imagine right now that car is going nowhere, and I think he might be a bit shaken by that one, but he toes to the pit. And as he do, Tomlinson Dennis, well, he's still holding on to third place here, elite and overall. Still got a bit more time between these two, but with the time they've got remaining, as I have heard in my ear, Jordan Jones has had a little bit of a moment. He's still in third in rookie, however, he's definitely fallen a bit further off the back of BJ Alvarez in the hunt for second in rookie class. So there's some drama out there, but right now, the battle for third is definitely taking centre stage on our screen in terms of overall and in elite class, because Alberto Gravelli just set the fastest lap of the race, a 21.15. He's continued to abscond with the lead, and Stuart Reynolds is trying to come with him. But interestingly, Stuart Reynolds, Pace is falling out of that Ford Mustang. Now, he has got some traffic he's negotiating. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt here. But that gap between himself and Tomlinson Dennis has actually come down from a sizable gap of the best part of 4-5 seconds over the last few laps. Now, it's down to 1.6 seconds. I wonder whether, if the traffic continues to go the way of Tomlinson Dennis, whether he could suddenly size himself up for a second place finish. However, I say that and I see what cars he's got in front of him here. That's not being rude about the drivers in front, but the fact he's got a pack of 3 cars all running together. Rob Wins at the head of that with the rookie leader of John Davis and then Xander Hill. Well, these 3 all fighting for position a lap down overall. I think they're all going to be treading on each other's toes at this point, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be a bit of a difficult moment. We will wait to see what's going to happen, but all these drivers are absolutely right. Now, they're in a bit of a race of their own. Xander Hill's going to look up the inside of Davis. That's going to be a little bit contentious, because I think Davis there would hold his place, but I think realised that last moment, but down they come, and you can see there, well, there it was at Tomlinson Dennis, having to really hope that Bukaga was not going to go in the middle of the road and make it 3 wide, and I think Nils wanted to, but decided not to, but here they come across the line, onto lap 37 they go, 7 remaining after this one, and right now that Ford Mustang is really trying to get the hammer down as they make the way off the hill. Up the hill they go. He's going to look one way then the other. You can see that with the traffic, where it's only going to be 1 wide room here as they come through Druids Bend. And right now the 734 of Nils Bukaga is absolutely tossing everything at this in order to try and get third place back. But Tomlinson Dennis, for all the pressure he's under, the one thing he's not wilted to is not knowing where to put that Corvette. He has absolutely nailed it lap after lap so far, exactly where to put it. But you can see this Ford Mustang, it's not going away. It is constantly there, and indeed right now it is roaring after that Corvette in this battle as they do make the way then past the rookie leader. Bukaga is inside. In fact, that's Rob Wins there, the AM driver, running all the way down in class in sixth in class in AM. So apologies there for mistaking our 2 McLaren drivers. And well, right now this fight for third is back into open territory, and this is where Tomlinson Dennis now will know he can't use other cars at least for a brief moment to give himself a buffer. So now he's got to get a little inventive as they chuck the cars through Sterling's Bend. Lovely corner, a bit of camber on the road. You can really bury it into apex. Wiper goes on. That's to get some of the stone chips and all the dirt off the windscreen. There's no sign of rain here today. We've got a lot of cloud, but indeed low-lying cloud over Brands Hatch is common. But as they come out of at the final quarter, gap is 3/10, exactly how it was at the previous lap, but they've got nobody between them as the car comes out the pit lane. That's Sean Crowley-Swatch who makes his way out, and will Tomlinson Dennis there finds a face for an Audi. Bukaga, meanwhile, gets a face for the Corvette. They come into the braking zone. There's going to be a squeeze. That's an absolutely tiny space. Crowley-Swatch at the end gives them the space to breathe. My good Lord. Oh, I had my breath taken away there. I thought we were going to see for a moment them going entirely 3 wide from the apex. In the end, it was slightly staggered. They survived all that. Well, you do see 3 wide in touring car racing, but in GT3 class racing, the cars are a bit wider. How they made it out of that, well, that is absolutely brilliant awareness from all 3 people involved. But oh no, it's gone wrong for Tomlinson Dennis as he makes me eat my words, and he's made his way to the wall there, coming out to Surtees. It's a grind against the wall. I don't think there's any major damage, but there won't be any damage to the car. But right now, I wouldn't be surprised there if there's going to be absolute tears starting to flow behind that helmet, because he's been doing so well to hold on to third for so long, and suddenly a small error coming out of Surtees, and it's all gone wrong. But how exactly did he get it wrong? Where's the replay? We quickly find out, because this is a quick head turner. And we jump on board here. Let's listen in. Gets the power down, and the car just snaps in slightly, mounts the exit curb there, and with the low ride height of the Corvette, the car essentially beached itself, and in the end, he really was at the mercy of which way the curb was going to spit the car out. That is gutting for Tomlinson Dennis, no doubt about it, but he's got to carry on and hope he can get back in that fight. We come back to you live at Racing Pictures, and as we do, still more to come, ladies and gentlemen. It's not over yet, this race. It is the race that keeps on giving. This is only round number 2 of the championship. My goodness, I think I'm going, oh my good Lord. And as soon as I say that, that's Sander Hill going around at the bottom of Druids Bend. He's had a spin. That was for 8th in the Pro class, and Nathan Foster will pick that up shortly because Hill's had to be towed to the pits as a result of his excursion. He is absolutely crazy here. And as I was about to say, if this is what it is going to be, excuse me, breathe. Take a deep breath. There we go. If this is what round 2 of the championship is going to be after all the drama at Daytona, and even more so here at Brands Hatch, I can't imagine what Fuji is going to be like in a week's time, particularly if we have rain there. Indeed, well, if we do have rain, it'll be absolutely crazy. But I don't know if we've got rain. I'll have to double check the pamphlet a little bit later. But still, putting what's happening a week ahead aside, well, right now, everything that's happening out here has been absolutely classic racing, no doubt about it, and all the drivers absolutely enjoying the fight. We definitely did have a bit of drama right in the opening lap, and that cost us a lot of brilliant battling between our drivers further down the field, particularly in the rookie class where we had quite a rate of attrition. Flip side of the coin, however, being those are able to stay alive in all of it. Well, we've been absolutely served a top-notch experience here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and that is why we always do have, of course, this circuit on the calendars. It's one of the most understated circuits for GT3 class racing, but that's why GT World Challenge Europe makes its way here. Indeed, it's been one of those circuits that delivers year in, year out. But we have lap number 40 on the cards here. Well, right now, the man who puts it on pole, and he has been absolutely unshakable despite the pressure from Stuart Reynolds. That's right, it's Effect Simulations Alberto Grilli in his McLaren, who right now, after this lap, will have another 4 to go, and come the end of it, he will be seeing the checker flag and a very happy race victory. How much further can Reynolds push him? Well, the answer seems to be at the moment not enough, because it's an 8.8 second gap, and well, that gap is not coming down. It's staying stationary. Alternatively, it will be one of those gaps that is just gradually increasing little by little. But as all of these drivers continue to make their way on through, we do look to John Davies, the rookie leader, who's still tucked behind Rob Windsor, the 6th place man in the AM class. Thinking about a move there is Davies. And I think a little angel on his shoulder right now is going to be saying to him, John, you do realise you don't need to fight this man. You have a comfortable gap to BJ Alvarez. And if you're wondering what that gap is to the 2nd place man and rookie, is 17 seconds there, as we can see on our time in town, the bottom left of your screen. But the classic thing here is the devil on his shoulder says, go on, you can take it over all places. Well, you can go for 21st. And well, he'd always love to do that. It's always an experience when you race drivers of a different class, particularly when they're of a higher class, because, well, we sometimes use the term, it's called scalp taking, whereby you're essentially claiming a position off of a driver who's quote-unquote more experienced than you. But the flip side is you always gain a bit of experience by battling with them. But then I think common sense has prevailed a little bit, because John Davies backs off immediately, and that was one of our Pace Worx eSports Ford Mustangs making its way on past, trying to discern who that was and make his way around. And well, we were getting up down that win weekend. I think that was Steve Hughes there making a bit of an adventure on through. And well, that was the Altitude 3M eSports machine that made its way around. I do apologise there for the two teams. They've got quite similar blue shades in the initial livery, particularly in this low light. But going from low light to what is a battle lower down the field, Jack Barker versus Tom Weston here. Both of them victims of the lap 1 incident, but right now they're also victims of circumstance to find themselves battling each other. But they'll be happy about this because it gives them some entertainment. It gives us some entertainment here as we ride aboard the front nose of the Tom Weston 44 as the DK with Digital Motorsport Mercedes charges its way into Hawthorne's Bend. And well, here you will have two very different cars in terms of that Acura, a very powerful car in the corners, but lacks it on the straights, albeit Daytona with the ability to run minimum wing. It was very quick there, but Weston here very close as they covered down. Thinks about going too wide for Dingle Dell, but he decides not to there. The temptation does not persuade him to go for it. Barker with a bit of a slide as they come off the corner and in towards Sterling's through the left-hander. You can definitely see there, mid-engine rear-wheel drive versus front-engine rear-wheel drive. That Acura, it has to slide in order to get the best possible corner speed. Weston, meanwhile, absolutely pointed as he goes a little bit deep there off the corner, but Barker having a poor exit. So out of the clock curve, and here he comes. It's going to be the overspeed here, looking up the inside, and Barker right now, what can he do to defend? Well, he's going to try and carry the speed all the way around the outside. Too wide they enter, but Weston's got a nose ahead on the exit, and Tom Weston moves up to 9th place there in the AM class. Lovely move from Tom Weston, puts the pressure on Barker, and Barker in the end having to yield, but classic racing between them. But as they all come down and in towards turn number 3, well, we do see John Davis there making his way out the inside of Rob Windsor, and through with him goes Simon Bamber, and also there, that's Nathan Foster. Well, that's not Nathan Foster, that's Tobias Kruken. Getting our names correct, as we're going to have Kruken who's gone round. Where have we lost him into that corner? We haven't quite seen where he's come back. There he is, you can see in the rear of the picture, and well, unfortunately for Kruken, it's gone all very wrong there in the Mercedes, and well, he at the time was running all the way down in. We're just trying to discern the place he was in. Well, we'll get an update on that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. 7th place in elite class, so running right towards the front of the field. In fact, he's got himself back together now, but he has lost the place there as Tobias Kruken to Austin William Campbell, and well, dropping to 7th in the elite class rather than being in 6th. He'll be a little bit annoyed at that, given the fact he was having a good race there until that all happened. But this lap plus one more to go from our leader, and here he is for a brief moment as he runs a bit wide there coming out of turn number 3. He'll get away with it that time, but if he keeps on doing it, well, he might be subject to a drive-through penalty. Not that we wish that on anybody this late in the race, because that will completely turn the tables upside down and not in a positive way. As he carries on, well, are there any other fights out there to note? We do have James Conley here trying to battle with Nathan Anstis for, I believe, 10th place, as we briefly lose James Conley and then he rematerialises from the proverbial ether. Nathan Anstis holding on to the final spot of the top 10 of the AMS here. They do score points all the way down to what I believe is 15th place in their classes, where it's 30 for first, then it's 28 for second, and it's a division of 2 or a gap of 2 each and every time. Car rejoining there, Simon Bamber, who's had a big shunt to the barrier coming out of hill. He's gone that far out. We'll have to understand what's happened to Simon Bamber a little bit later on. I don't think we're going to get a replay of that. Peter Duke, meanwhile, well, he's still got Casper Tunstead behind, and these two right now, I can imagine if they were both in the same class, we'd be losing our breath over this fight for the simple reason because Casper Tunstead has been stuck there for an eternity behind Duke. Getting very close this time. Surely he's going to have a pop at it in towards Druids. Yes, he is. And Duke this time says, okay, you've won. You've beat me. I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to let it go this time. But Casper Tunstead's going to be thinking to himself, it's taken me the best part of 20 laps to find a way past that Acura. I've finally done it. He'll feel very happy with that. The only thing is he will be a little bit upset because that wasn't worth an elite position. It's just overall. Final lap's now underway as I look out McLaren's overbooth window, and Alberto Gavilli's already making his way up towards Surtees corner. Here he is. And the next time he comes around, ladies and gents, but we will see that checkered flag, and it is looking absolutely fantastic for him right now, and he's looking unstoppable out there. Stuart Reynolds, he's in second right now, and the Fury Simsport machine happily in second, and it's got a 5-second gap to Niels Bukag, who right now holding on to that third place spot. And with Tomlinson Dennis's excursion to the barrier on the exit of Surtees, well, it does seem as though the 734 will be comfortably taking that third place spot overall and in the elite class. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers continue to make their way all the way to the end of this, all of our battles have definitely subsided now, at least for the top 5 in each of the classes. So what it does mean here is as we look to the man who started on pole position, it was an incredible qualifying lap, the only man to set a 20.773, and that lap gave him the perfect opportunity to seize victory, and he's done exactly that as Alberto Gavilli. As he comes to the finish line, the checker flag waves, and it's an ecstatic day for Effect Simulations as he takes the win there by 9 seconds in the end over Stuart Reynolds, who will be runner-up there in the Ford Mustang for Fury Sim Sport, and a comfortable for second place by 5 seconds over Niels Bukag, who brings on home there third place overall. We'll then have none other than Milton Tomlinson Dennis, fourth on the road. What a drive from him before you come to your pro winner, Joe Newman, and another classic served up there for the Ford Mustang driver, with Sam Derbyshire in sixth ahead of Austin William Campbell, who comes on through shortly to take 7th place. We've got a few more drivers to make their way through, and John Davis, there he is, ladies and gentlemen, your rookie class winner, and an absolutely ecstatic classic drive from him. He'll be absolutely chuffed with that one. Austin William Campbell takes 7th place ahead of Tobias Kruken, and it will then, well, in fact, there is Kruken right now, who getting himself back together. We'll come across that finish line in the end in 8th place ahead of Ruben Berings, runner-up in the pro class. And then Ryan Davis rounds up your pro podium there ahead of Darren Orkett, whose late mistake cost him dear. We've still got a few more drives to finish. Charles Philippetts on the lead lap there. He'll take 5th in the pro class in a bit of a quiet race for the DDK Racing Team driver ahead of Cy Anthony, who's happy with that one to survive to take 6th in pro. But for Neil Kenyon, there's a big smile on that Mercedes driver's face because that's victory in the AM class there. And what a victory from him, with Casper Tunstead being the last lead lap finisher, and behind him a lap down, but he's still going to see the checkered flag here. He wants to do one more lap. He wants to do all of them. Peter Duke, runner-up in the AM class. And well, I can tell you one thing for Peter, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the man who used to race Formula Fords and Formula Vauxhalls, if I remember correctly, in real life, he's had a long time since he's last seen a podium in GT3 race on the simulator, and he's finally seen it with 2nd place today. But as all drivers make the way into the pit lane or park up, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are after 44 laps of absolutely incredible racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Well, our race results are taking their time a little bit at the moment, but they will eventually make their way onto screen. I believe they're just a little bit glitched. Give us a brief moment and they may come on back. I think we are just waiting for one or two cars to make the way to the finish line, and that might explain why they're taking the time. And if our race results do come on screen very shortly, and it looks as though no, they won't at the moment, so we might have to do this based on the timing tower finishing positions instead, because I believe we've had all of our drivers finish the race. Jack Barker, the only car out there at the moment, but on a cool-down lap, so I think our race results have decided to hide themselves, and that's a little bit unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen, but give us a brief moment, and we will see what magic we can do. So our race results have decided they don't want to appear, so what we are going to do instead is we are going to see if, well, let's give it one more try. Let's get the old college try to see if we can brute force them onto the screen, and if not, what we'll do instead is we will walk you through them based on the timing tower. So here we go. Without further ado, let's bring the timing towers back up the screen and let's walk through them. So overall then, it was Alberto Grivelli taking a victory there overall and in the elite class by 8.7 seconds over Stuart Reynolds. He was then followed up by Niels Pekag, who completed your top three in elite and overall. A brilliant race between the top three, and particularly from third place man of Pekag and Tomlinson Dennis, where Milton Tomlinson Dennis in the end finishing fourth, gutted about that, but still gave it his all the way along the way. And from them, it was Joe Newman who took pro victory in a class of his own once again today, the Ford Mustang driver for Altitude 3M eSports, ahead of Sam Derbyshire, who had quite a quiet race in the Corvette, and in the end really had to park the car. It didn't quite work it out, and he had to park it a number of times in the end in order just to make sure he made it to the end of the race in terms of not getting caught up in battles of drivers on a lap down. But still for Derbyshire, I'm sure more is going to come as the season goes on. Austin William Campbell was 7th after his excursion to the gravel on the open lap, did well to recover ahead of Tobias Kruken, and then Ruben Berings run up there in the pro class ahead of Ryan Davies to complete your top 10 overall. Ryan Davies was third in pro, and he was just ahead of Daryl Norquette, who fought with him hard every step of the way, and Norquette will be gutted not to have picked up a podium today, with Giles Philippette and Cy Anthony completing the run of pro drives to 13th. 14th was your AM winner of Neil Kenyon. Well done to him for taking his first win of the season in the Mercedes AMG Evo. He definitely was in a class of his own over the race distance, ahead of Casper Tunstead, with a run-up spot in the AM class, a lap down going to Peter Duke, who in the end had a comfortable advantage over Simon Oldfield of 6 seconds, and Simon Oldfield completing your AM top 3. You then got to go some way down to 21st before you do find your rookie winner in his first ever win in the UK Sim Racing Series. John Davies, he's finally broken the duck there, and the McLaren driver will be absolutely ecstatic about that one. Head of BJ Alvarez, who was 26th, run up in rookie, and then it was Jordan Jones, who rounded off your rookie podium. Commiserations for several drivers out there who ended up with late retirements, as we do briefly also lose there the back end of the screen. Indeed, things do seem to be falling apart on this end, but can we get our individual class finishing positions? We will try that. No, they're not wanting to be forthcoming, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. So what we will do is we will bring that time tower back up, but we will now look to the individual class positions if we can, and try to walk you through those as quickly as we can. So starting off with elite, it was Alberto Grivelli ahead of Stuart Reynolds and Niels Pekag, who were your podium finishers. Then Milton Tomlinson Dennis was 4th ahead of Sam Derbyshire, Austin William Campbell and Tobias Kruken. In 8th in the class, it was none other than Casper Tunstead ahead of Simon Bamber, with James Ibram, the last of the elite finishers, in 10th place, and yet the retirements for Jarrett Lee, James Powlesland, James Armstrong and Daniel Stasuk. In the pro class, it was Joe Newman who took victory ahead of Ruben Berings and Ryan Davies. That was your podium. Darren Norquette was 4th ahead of Giles Philippette and Cy Anthony, with Casper Brotner in 7th place, and a bit of a lonely 7th, but ahead of Nathan Foster. And we did have Zander Hill be the last of our finishers as classified in the pro class. Then in the AM class, well, we did see it go the way of Neil Kenyon, with Peter Duke and Simon Oldfield completing that podium. 4th in class was Daniel Pace ahead of Sean Cranny-Swash. We didn't really talk about Daniel Pace today. I think he was a bit off the radar for the most of it, but Sean Cranny-Swash taking 5th in a very exciting race for the Audi driver. 6th in that class went to Rob Windsor ahead of Brett Berings, with Tom Weston, Jack Barker, Nathan Ansters completing the top 10, and James Connolly best the rest in 11th, and retirees for Darren Sharples. In rookie, meanwhile, it was John Davies who took victory ahead of BJ Alvarez and Jordan Jones. Christopher Bates was 4th in the class, another solid haul of points for him in the BMW, ahead of Steve Hughes, who rounded off the rookie top 5, and then it was Dan Oliver Fox, Stuart Pearson, Darren Giacovelli. They were your finishers as classified. In fact, I believe we did have retirements for both Stuart Pearson and Darren Giacovelli, so they will not be classified, and the same for Pavel Bruce, Alex Brown and Richard Jones. So that's all your positions. Unfortunately, we do apologise there for the fact we couldn't get the results up on screen. They did decide to go a little bit erroneous. But without further ado, what it does mean now is that we need to do some giveaway winners for the purposes of today. And we are going to get the giveaway wheel up on screen now. And there it is. And of course, these are the VRS giveaways for the 3-month, 2-month and 1-month subscription. And what we are going to do is, off screen at the moment, we do have all of our drivers' names who are entered today because they were all able to make it to the grid and they all started the race. So we are going to put all of our drivers' names into the 3-month draw first. However, of course, we have to remove one name, and that will be the name of Simon Bamber, or Simon A. Bamber as he's known there. So let's remove him because he was your winner from last week's 3-month giveaway. And without further ado, let's spin the wheel and find out who's going to take the prize. And Ryan Davies takes the prize, the 3-month VRS subscription. Congratulations to him. And we now come on to our 2-month subscription draw, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for the 2-month draw, we need to remove the name of Jack Barker because he was the lucky fellow who won last time out. So let's just remove his name there. There you can see him, and now he's gone. And let's spin the wheel again. And it's Simon Oldfield who takes on home the 2-month VRS subscription. Congratulations to Simon Oldfield for that. And then lastly, we come to the 1-month subscription. And he wasn't on the grid today, was Pavel Dolezal, so we don't need to cut his name from the list. We just spin the wheel. And it's James Armstrong, just by a sliver, who takes home the prize of a 1-month VRS subscription. So congratulations to all 3 of our winners, and they will be contacted by the UK Sim Racing Administration team in due course to receive their prizes. But now the big question, of course, is after 2 rounds, where exactly do we go in terms of the championship? Because we have had a very dramatic day of racing, no doubt about it. And we start off then with the elite standings, these being provisional, of course, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, Stuart Reynolds now leads the way for Fury Simsport, head of Sam Derbyshire. Then it's in third for Austin William Campbell. The gap there between the top 3, 13 points in total, but Reynolds definitely pulling away after a reasonable day at Daytona today. That second place definitely giving a huge haul of points. The absence of a number of drives will come into effect. We'll talk more about that in short course, with Nils Bukag there turning the wrongs of Daytona around into plenty of rights today here. Brands Hatch moves up to 4th place on 38 points, only ahead of Milton Tomlinson Dennis based on result countback. He sits in 5th. And then from the world of racing with STR Motorsports driver, it's Tobias Kruken for Solpec Precision Racing, with Alberto Grilli, Daniel Stasuk, Simon Bamber and James Powlesland completing the top 10. Now, big emphasis here on James Powlesland and Pavel Dolezal, because both of them were on the grid at Daytona, but were not on the grid here today, so they commit Brands Hatch as a drop score for the season. And well, as well, Daniel Stasuk doing the same now, a winner from Daytona, so expect them to try and make the way back up the order in the coming rounds. Outside of them, Casper Tunstead sits in 12th ahead of James Ibram, with Jarrett Lee and James Armstrong completing your elite class standings. Coming on to the pro class meanwhile, and here we can see, well, the story is a little bit different. Joe Newman leads by 13 points for Altitude 3M eSports. He's been the dominant force so far and takes all the points today. Indeed, that greedy man from Ryan Davies, who sits in 2nd on 50 points, 7 ahead of Ruben Berings, who does have some penalty points from Daytona. But Berings doing a great job today to finish 2nd on the road and therefore start to build up his championship momentum with his teammate for DDK Race Anywhere. And Giles Philippette's consistent so far, sitting in 4th. Xander Hill and Casper Brotner are a further 2 points behind, as is Darryl Norquette there. And we definitely have got a fight brewing there for 3rd place already in the pro class standings. Well, then you've got to go a further 8 points back to 8th place man Cy Anthony, who enjoyed his racing today for UK Sim Racing Bryce. Further 2 off him, Nathan Foster, and it's Daniel Shilcock who completes your top 10, not on the grid today, nor is Krista Halsoy, Matthew Sheraton or Christian Maltrek. We then come to the AM class, and here we can see the complexion is Neil Kenyon leads the way by a single point for UK Sim Racing Price over Pigeon Racing's Sean Cranny Swash. And look at how the tables are oscillating here in the AM class. Nobody so far has declared themselves dominant by any means or built up an early lead, because our top 4 are separated by only 4 points because Ruben Berings sits only a further point behind there in third for DDK with Digital Motor Art, and it's Old Dudes in Cars' Daniel Pace in 4th place. Peter Duke, well, it didn't quite go right at Daytona, but it definitely went right today for DDK with Digital Motor Art driver, and well, as a result, he will be in that 5th place position, looking to move forward versus Jack Barker, who sits in 6th, and behind the Made for Racing driver is James Conley in 7th, Simon Oldfield in 8th, Darren Sharples in 9th, and Rob Windsor completes that top 10. Tom Weston's 11th at the moment, but will be very keen to build upon his successes from today. Although he only finished in 9th place, it will be the positivity he takes from his battling over the course of the racing at Brands Hatch. Jeffrey Damon sits in 12th ahead of Nathan Anstis. It's Ryan Rulesley, who we'll see on the grid in round number 3, I do believe, ahead of Matt Edmondson and Ashley Brooks, with the last 3 yet to score any points. Coming to the rookie class, BJ Alvarez then now leads the way, with Pavel Brooks getting into difficulty, but it's the push the standard driver who's definitely raising the standard out there with back-to-back podiums. Then it's Sean Lee Jones in 3rd on 40 points, just ahead of Christopher Bates based on result countback, with Stuart Pearson sitting 5th for Slow and Steady Racing, and then we do have the wrong stuff's John Davis in 6th there, and that win, his first race of the season where he scored points, with the wrong stuff driver there starting off his campaign with a huge positive. Well done to him on his inaugural win. Dan Oliver Fox is 7th, and the privateer ahead of Alistair Murray, who we didn't see on the grid today. Then Steve Hughes and Darren Giacovelli completing your top 10. Best the rest in 11th, Alex Brown, who wasn't on the grid here for Slow and Steady Racing, ahead of Thomas Helmer, with Simon Cheshire, Rise Kitley, I should say there. There's a T there, albeit my eyesight's not getting too good at the moment, with Simon Hartley in 15th, ahead of Richard Jones, and Martin Fernie completing the order there, yet to score any points. We then come to the team standings, and here we can see your top 15. It's Old Dudes in Cars, who lead the way on 92 points, ahead of the 88 of DDK with Digital Motor Art, and it's UK Sim Racing Price only a further point behind. Outside the top 3, you've only got to go a further 2 down for DDK with Race Anywhere, and then you come to Effect Simulations, who've received a huge injection of points today, and they'll be needing to continue that momentum forward when they carry on into next time, because they will want to take the team's championship. There's a lot of pride on the line. NJB Performance sitting 6th, ahead of Pace Worx eSports by 5 points. Expect Pace Worx to be back on the grid in full next time out, where Altitude 3M eSports, SAS Racing, and Push the Standard completing the top 10. Fury Sim Sport, they've had a great day today. They move into 11th, 2 points ahead of Pigeon Racing, but UK Sim Racing Stuart, DWR with SimCoach Setups Red, and SimCoach completing your team's top 15. So that's all of our standings updated, provisionally, of course, subject to any Stewards inquiries, and all our drivers will be getting themselves set now for round number 3 in a week's time. But without further ado, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen. If you have enjoyed, well, be sure to let us know by leaving a like or alternatively subscribing to the respective channel you've tuned in on today, so that way you can stay up to date with all the racing action as it's broadcasted throughout the whole season. And if you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the UK Sim Racing community, we do recommend you head to our official website. That's uksimracing.co.uk. And as it appears on the screen now, well, the website has recently gone through a complete overhaul with regards to its look and feel. And, well, it was debuted as of last week's broadcast, but as we can see here, integrated with the UK Sim Racing Discord and YouTube channel, our new website provides all the information you need for a quick and easy to navigate interface. You can check out the latest announcements of the community on the homepage, which you're seeing on the screen currently. You can catch up on our most recent broadcasts in the live streams and videos on demand page, check out our affiliates on our partners page, and if you fancy being on the grid, you can even go to the active leagues page to see all of our current and upcoming series, and therefore get yourself on the grid and be in pole position to go battling with the very best here at UK Sim Racing. So if you haven't visited it yet, be sure to head to our website at uksimracing.co.uk. But if you don't want to go to this website, well, of course, what you can do is follow us on social media, and that's at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements from UK Sim Racing there as well. But where do we head to next time, ladies and gentlemen? Because Daytona was an absolutely brilliant round of racing, and Brands Hatch has been no exception. Well, round number 3, it's going to be the Fuji International Speedway. We make our way across the Pacific Ocean into Japan, and as we do, when we race in the foothills of Mount Fuji, the question will be, who will go into our mid-season break on a high? Well, right now, in Elite, it's anybody's guess. Indeed, in all four classes, it's anybody's guess, but Alberto Gravilli will be feeling as though he is the man to do it. In Pro, Joe Newman does seem to be the man on an absolute charge. Can anybody rein him in? And in Am and Rookie, we've had completely different winners in 2 races and completely different podiums as well. Can anybody establish some consistency in Elite, Am, and Rookie? And in Pro, can anybody take on Newman? Well, we'll continue the story there in round number 3 because the racing will be on Sunday, the 6th of July, 2025. But we'll bring it to you as if it were live on Monday, the 7th of July. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.